Take it, Richard.
Good evening and welcome to the June 6, 2016 Long Meadow Select Board meeting. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to start with announcements by the board. Do we have any announcements tonight?
I have no announcements. I just have some comments, so why don't we wait to see if there's any announcements?
Okay.
Although there is an announcement about next Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know who's going to do that.
Yeah, next Tuesday. Any announcements down this end? Okay.
Well, actually, I think about it, sports-wise, I know that Tuesday night, tomorrow night, 7:30, the boys lacrosse team at the high school has a big game. They have a chance to win the state championship, and I wish I could make it at 7:30, but those of you who want to see some good lacrosse can go there. And the boys track team broke a school record in the 4x800 race the other day, last week.
Wow. It's a state record?
No, the school record.
School record.
Yeah.
Okay. How much?
And they beat it by 10 seconds, which is a lot.
There's a
That's
lot.
amazing.
Yeah.
Actually, and the girls are playing at 5:30 tomorrow.
Oh, 5:30, the girls, for
Yeah.
lacrosse.
Yep.
All right.
You want to mention the election?
Sure. There's an election a week from tomorrow, townwide election. Encourage people to go out and vote. So,
Okay, we've got, do we have any resident comments tonight? Okay, we have a liquor license hearing that's due to start at 7:05.
yeah, I've got a couple of select board comments. I can
Okay.
make a couple of them quick, and
Okay.
then we'll break at 7:05
Go ahead,
if
Mark.
people don't mind. So I have a list of a few things. One is that just comments, and these are mostly requests, Stephen. During Long Meadow Days, I had a chance to walk through the green area of town and noted, and I think I've said something, Stephen, to you offline, so you're not hearing this for the first time, but that the edges of our municipal driveways, the library driveway, the horseshoe around the community house, appear to be the victim of our snow melt material, and it just seems different to me this year than last. I know we've been using a different snow melt material. I'm just wondering if it doesn't make sense just for aesthetics purposes, if we get the DPW, if other people agree to kind of give us a proposal, what would it take? I know around the trees to help trimming, we put bark mulch, and maybe that'll happen, because we've gotten a lot of people commenting about areas around town where this new snow melt material seems to have done in the lawn. So if there's anything we can do there, it'd certainly be helpful. And again, I'm not looking to replant the grass every spring. I think we need some kind of a more permanent kind of solution around there. The second thing is just a comment trying to represent Precinct D, which is the southeastern part of the town. We've got a couple of roadways that kind of seem to have lost in the shuffle, and I've tried to have some discussions with the DPW. There was a collapse of a storm sewer between Barbara Lane and Avondale Road on Inverness Lane that was finally repaired, but it's still gravel, and cars go by it, and we're getting a lot of gravel kicked up all over the cars, and every time it rains, we end up with potholes in the gravel, and I don't know what it's going to take to get that paved, but it sure would be nice if we could pave this. It's probably a 12 by 12 or 12 by 15 foot piece of the street that would certainly help. And gotten a lot of comments about an area on Avondale Road that's been collapsing or been cordoned off to one lane, and sure would be nice if we could do something about those. That's been, I know we approved money for it in 2015, and so it's now been 13 or 14 months, and we really need to get that stuff going. It's really a shame that it seems that the one section of town tends to get the short end of the stick on some of these, or at least that's the perception at some point.
That's funny, because I hear from every section of town that feels like
I'm sure you do.
So you're right on the.
The stick is short on all ends. How's that?
You're right on the project things. I limited sympathy, but short on the stick. I have sympathy for all sections of town.
Okay, I'll buy into that. So
Okay.
why don't we take a break, and I've got
Yeah.
one other comment.
Okay,
after.
then we'll
Thanks.
start our, take a motion to open a liquor license hearing.
Move we open the liquor license hearing for Delaney's Market LLC.
Okay. Second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Do we have the representatives from Delaney? Would you come up to the mic, please, sir?
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Sure. And you can state your name and,
My name is Peter Roskatton. I'm the owner of Delaney's Market.
okay, and you've got an application in for a new liquor license over here at 696 Bliss Road.
That is correct. Delaney's Market is I view it as a retail store of prepared meals to go. So the concept is to have some freshly prepared meals in a few different coolers, and a guest that comes into the store has the ability to walk around the store, pick what he or she wants, and then pay for it at the register, and then take it home, take it to the office. There's no food that will be consumed at Delaney's Market. It's truly designed to be a retail store with fresh prepared meals. The opportunity to sell a bottle of wine, or specifically wine is what we have in mind, but maybe a six-pack of beer or something like that, is an opportunity we would like to have, and that's the reason we're applying for this liquor license as a convenience store, or as a liquor store kind of a thing. Even though we don't intend to be a liquor store, we tend to just, for us, the wine and beer ingredient is probably an impulse buy. Taking a couple meals home and want to grab a bottle of wine, you want to do it. So our approach with the wine and beer would be very limited selection. There's not a lot of room in that store. The focus is to sell prepared meals to go. But that's kind of what we're here. May I answer any questions on that, or?
Okay, I did notice on your license you put all alcohol, so you're going to have spirits too.
We have no intention to it. It's the license that's available. Honestly, no intention to have all spirits there.
Okay.
The idea is we need a license to sell. Honestly, the main thought is wine.
Yeah.
Probably some beer, maybe some local craft or something like that, but very small selection. I mean, we're really going after the impulse kind
To
of.
just to supplement the meal service.
That is correct.
Okay. One-stop shopping.
Well, yes, for the meal.
Okay. Okay.
For the meal.
Have any questions from the board members? Go ahead.
I don't have a question so much, Mr. Rothskelton, but Peter.
Peter,
But
please.
I guess one comment is that we have been in the past somewhat critical on, or attentive, I would say, for assuring that we do not have sales of liquor to underage people. And one of the concerns we've always had, or at least I've always had, is having people trained in the proper means of IDing people for being 21 or older for the purchase of, in this case, wine and beer. And so I guess my question to you is, have you yet taken steps to do that? Do you intend to take steps to do that? And how many different employees are you going to have, and are they all going to be authorized to sell wine?
So a couple questions there. We have not done any training as of right now. We expect to open sometime late July. There is a manager that is hired at this point, and we still most likely have one more person ready to hire. The total team probably will be about 6 employees. If we're really busy, hopefully more employees, but that's sort of the intent. The absolute intent is to train everybody to properly sell. You have to be over 18 to sell alcohol, and you have to know how to check IDs and so forth. I am the owner of, I think, 5 or 6 liquor licenses. Forget how many I own. I've never been fined. I take it really seriously. I'm the owner of the Lock Cabin, Delaney House. And so it's something that we're very passionate about. The idea is not to sell a minor. So I give you a commitment that we will do our very best to never sell to a minor.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Tom?
Yeah. So folks who are not buying food, will they be able to purchase liquor?
Technically, yes. Technically, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what's in the store, there will be olive oil. That's one of the things we have, bread. So really, technically, anything that's in the store will be available to a consumer.
Okay. And the exact location, is this the old Hukilau location?
No. This
or-
is the old Semolina, sir.
Oh, it's Semolina's,
The
okay.
old Semolina. Yeah, if you go by there, you see we've been doing work inside.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess I just have a question for the board. I mean, is there a transitional, like, could we approve a a beer and, if he's primarily saying he's gonna sell beer and wine, could we approve a liquor license for that level?
Well, his
No, it's-
application's already filled.
Okay,
It is,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
It's
Tom.
all alcohol he's
so it's
requesting.
all alcohol?
Yeah, but his,
My little research, if I may answer, I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
think so. I
Right.
think
There
it's,
is no- there
because
is
it's
no
like a
just-
liquor store, it is kind of what it is.
Mhm.
I'm not a pro at liquor licenses from that side of things, but I kind of read it all, and I think
Right.
it's,
We don't split out licenses
unlike
for
a
wine or.
restaurant, unlike
beer.
a restaurant, you can do beer and wine and full. I think at the store level, it is,
Right.
It's a package store license.
yeah, it's a
Right.
package store license.
Okay, so it's a package store license for a food vendor.
That's
Right.
correct.
did you bring any free samples?
We're not making them yet.
Oh, okay. You know, it's like the TV shows where everybody eats the food. Okay.
Yeah.
Marie, do you
I
have
do
any-
want to clarify, we're really not looking at us as a restaurant. We're looking at us in the way the store will be designed, will truly be designed as a retail store.
Right.
So olive oils and little snacks and chips and food, which is the main ingredient, that's sort of the vision.
Pre-prepared meals.
Pre-prepared meals. Nothing will be prepared there. It'll be all fresh, but not prepared there.
Okay. Marie, do you have any questions?
No, sounds
Everything
wonderful.
Yeah, I just, because of the timing, generally our, this is now, it looks like it's really a 6-month application. It comes up for renewal for the first year, for 2017 will be a separate application. I guess my comment to you would be that we have been advised that we can't make liquor license renewals contingent upon your employees receiving tips or safe serve training, but I can tell you that your renewal will be contingent upon them having tips and safe serve training come next year. So I would encourage you, and from what we understand, those are equivalent, and they both do the job, so I would.
You've got my
strong-
commitment. I'll go
Thank
on
you.
record with that.
Thank you.
Any other? Alex?
So just to follow up on the underage drinking, to me, the whole training thing is a little overblown. It's like, it's really a matter of just doing it, right? Where we've had liquor license violations, it's come up because nobody checked the ID. You don't have to be smart to check the ID, you just have to do it every time. So, and I think if you look at our track record, there have been instances where people have been shut down from, selling liquor if there is a violation, and, there are periodic checks. So, it sounds like you're experienced at it, and I have no problem with it, but, I think this board, although I won't be here, it's my last meeting, but I think the history of this board indicates that, if we saw a violation right out of the gate, that would affect, our view of future
I hear you loud
licenses.
and clear, and I'm 100% with you, to be honest with you.
Okay.
100% with you.
I had another,
Do you have anything?
well, yeah, I did have something else I was gonna, because I mean, the Delaney House, I know that you're experienced in this field, and that isn't the issue for me, but I also think about, are we gonna run into a situation down the road where people are gonna buy food and liquor and then get in the cars in the parking lot and begin to ingest those? And there'll be no control, there'll be no bartender, no nothing like that, and so that's something that concerns me, because, when you're selling food and liquor together, and then there's no place for people to eat, there are gonna be some people who will eat in their cars and drink and eat, and so that will be part of the parking lot, and we have no ordinance that would tell people they couldn't do that, and I'm just
So
concerned.
open container alcohol in vehicles, yeah, they.
Breaking the law.
Yeah,
Yeah.
police can get pretty serious on
Yeah,
it.
it's breaking the law.
If open container of alcohol in a vehicle.
Even a vehicle that's not moving, so.
Yeah, but it's gonna move.
Well, if
I
if
can't
it's
imagine.
not gonna move, I mean, if
Yeah.
it's not gonna move, then they.
Well,
could-
similar, I understand your point, Tom. It's similar to
Yeah.
going and buying a bag of chips and 2 beers. I mean, people are gonna do stuff.
Yeah,
I wish you could,
Yeah, I don't think we can police that.
yeah.
But there's no
Right.
license to have alcohol at the Long Meadow shop. So if somebody is drinking or a beverage, an alcoholic beverage at the Long Meadow shops, I think technically that's breaking the law
In the parking lot.
in the
Yeah,
parking lot.
public
yeah.
drinking.
okay, all right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that would, just one thing I would
Yeah.
want to be concerned about, yeah.
If something like that ever became a concern from our perspective, I mean, we can try to address it with signage or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
Oh, I'd like to move we close the hearing.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
All in favor?
I just have this comment of discussion. Just so people understand, I've been on record, I actually opposed the liquor license hearing at Ume Restaurant. I thought that, and I continue to think that we've got plenty of bars within a couple hundred yards of the high school and don't need any more. But in this case, because it's not consumed on the site, I think it's be a nice addition to the shops to have what I'd call a prepared foods store, and so I'm prepared to vote for it. But I do see it as very different from some of the other requests that we've had in the area. And should future requests come up for additional bars in the area, I'd certainly be somebody who'd likely vote against them.
All right.
Any
Well-
other comments?
Well, I would just, in response to that, is that, we had a liquor license issued across the other side of the Bliss and Williams at the Hukilau, and I would imagine if something goes in there, that they'll want to also.
They may,
They may.
or maybe a clothing store, Tom. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Could be.
All right.
Any other thing? Okay, we got a motion and a second in for the close of the hearing. All in favor? Okay, hearing's closed. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the new liquor license.
I'll move we approve the liquor license application for Delaney Market.
Is there a
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the license approval? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Good luck at your new business.
Thank you very much to all of you. Have a great evening.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll back up 1 second. We didn't have any resident comments, did we? There was no one on, okay.
Ask the gentleman a question.
Yeah.
When do you think you're going to be open?
Shooting for late July, so somewhere between the 15th and the 30th of July,
You looking for
somewhere
dinner?
around there. We did that on purpose.
Yeah, I'll get you.
We want to start in the middle of the summer. We want to start very quiet, very unpretentious, and kind of build from there instead of getting hit really hard.
All right, well, just let us know.
Yeah.
Just so we can,
Appreciate
if people ask, we can support local business.
Thank you very much. And we did notify all the abutters, sent letters, and so,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Peter.
Yeah. Select board comments?
Yeah, Rich, I'd just like to finish my comments. I'd like to finish by recognizing this is Alex Grant's last meeting. Alex chose not to run for re-election, and at the next meeting will be after the election. I'd like to thank Alex for his 3 years of service on behalf of the Select Board and on behalf of the town. He and I haven't always agreed on everything. I don't think I'll ever move to tiered water rates, Alex, but, keep plugging away at it. Maybe you'll break through, but certainly you've raised the consciousness of the Select Board, you've raised the consciousness of the town in a couple of areas. Most particularly, I'll note Alex's early request that we moved forward addressing opiates by putting Narcan in police vehicles, and I think the level of debate that resulted from your 3 years here was much improved, and so I want to thank you on behalf of the town for your service.
Thank you, Mark.
Did you ever wonder who's running for office? Select board comments, Marie?
No, I'll wait till
Okay.
the end.
Select board, Alex?
Well, I guess one thing that I wanted to say substantively is one of the things that I regret is not being more persuasive when we debated the acceptance or prospective acceptance of a turf football field in the fall of 2014. Of course, we had a different makeup of the board back then. And, the board voted to at least provisionally accept a turf field if the funds could be raised. And at the time, I thought there were warning signs about the health risks of crumb rubber and turf fields. And, since that time, the warning signs have been greater. The California Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, which is sort of like their EPA, has a synthetic turf scientific advisory panel. I mean, they have this huge effort going on to study the health effects of turf fields and crumb rubber. This year, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Centers for Disease Control, the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, and the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission launched a multi-agency action plan to study turf fields. And, you know, there are a lot of towns and cities that have a lot of these in place. This could be a huge liability for them and potentially a huge health hazard. We have not accepted the turf field yet. So, you know, there's still time to not put that into place. And I would just sort of raise this, you know, as a request that the select board rethink this, because at least until, you know, the next year or two, by the end of the year, the EPA and those other federal agencies expect to have some more information about this. And the California office is also doing its studies. I would just hate for us to install something like this at great expense and then 6 months later find out that it's, I mean, to me, the warning signs are already there. But to in a more definitive way, to find that, you know, we would have to abate the hazard. So I would ask the select board to carefully consider this, put it on the agenda of a future meeting, look at the research, and I haven't heard anything about the fundraising. I don't know where they stand at this point, but I think it's worth, you know, getting the word out there that, you know, the book is not closed on this, and that we don't want to put something in that, you know, could be a major health hazard, you know. And I look back on the last 3 years, that decision, you know, among all the other things that we've debated, including the casino and gun control and everything else, somehow I think that decision about the turf field could be the one that matters the most, unfortunately in a negative way. So I'd ask that the select board consider that at a future meeting.
Tom?
Well, I would just, you know, support that. I've read stuff about soccer goalies specifically who are having reports of higher rates of cancer, and so that's pretty significant stuff. So thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you.
You have anything else, Marie?
No, at the end of the meeting, I was just going
Okay.
to say something, not the comments.
Okay. I think, Alex, I think that you're right. A lot more research is out, and lots more has been discussed on this issue. I can't imagine crumb rubber ever being approved in this town. I just can't imagine, because it's overwhelming amount of research now. I guess there's other fabrics, like cocoa fabric and some other things. But
Other film.
But the crumb
Right.
rubber, it just doesn't make sense. Grinding up tires and all those chemicals that are used in that
Right.
process. So, well, you know, each year about this time, we have a rite of passage, I guess you could say, takes place. The election comes up. And the way our board is set up, we have 2 people that come up for reelection in 2-year cycles, and 1 person on a 3-year cycle. So this year, of course, is Mr. Mark Gold's going for reelection. And Alex Grant is ending his service to our town. And we will be picking up a new member in case he gets 1 or 2 votes at the uncontested election, which will be Bill Lowe. In recognition of Alex, and Mark, I appreciate what you said, but in recognition of Alex's service to the community, we'd like to present him with a plaque that is from the town of Longmeadow, gratefully recognizes Alex Grant for his service on the select board from 2013 to 2016. Thank you for your 3 years of exceptional service to the town and the residents of Longmeadow. It doesn't say Longmeadow, I put in Longmeadow. This is something that I hope we will continue to do. Our people that serve on this board specifically, I don't think anybody understands how many hours of time they devote to this job. It's not just these meetings. It's the research time, it's the talk time, it's the emails, it's the meetings. It's unbelievable. Now, there is a slight compensation given to the select board members, but I can guarantee you, it doesn't even come close to compensating for the time that people devote. So, Alex, we have not always been in agreement, but I've always respected your thoughts, and I think you've respected some of mine. So, but on behalf of the select board, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for serving. The whole board?
No, just present it.
That'd be a collector's item, that's the first one.
Well, Richard,
Worth a lot on eBay.
you know, actually, this is meaningful to me because I know that, as you say, we've not always agreed. I think I've disagreed with everybody on this board at multiple times, and it means a lot that even though we've disagreed on things, that we can respect one another's viewpoint. I know that everybody on this board, you know, is looking out for the best interest of the town. I know that's true of the town manager. I know it's true of everybody who works for the town, so thank you.
Okay. No other no other comments from select board members? Okay, and the liquor license is out of the way. Annual board and committee interviews, I guess we'll start. Jeffrey?
The outside.
Jeffrey's outside, okay?
Al, do you want me to?
Yeah, see if you can grab Jeffrey.
Why don't we start with Jim Law?
Jim Law, why don't you come on up? Name and address for the record, Mr.
Jim
Law?
Law, 79 Wildwood Glen in Wildwood.
Okay. And you are wanting to go for capital planning,
Yes, sir.
and you're currently on finance,
Currently on finance, ending a 9-year term on the finance committee.
9-year term, and going for your first term on capital planning.
Right.
Okay. Got anything special you can share with us, Jim?
Under the finance committee 2 or 3 years ago was instrumental in us going under the GFOA program. One of the items that are within the GFA program is the long-term planning for capital expenditures, which even though I think we got the recognition we deserve, the town deserves, I think we're still deficient in that, and that was what I kind of focused on wanting to do, is do a little bit more in that document that is available to the town. That's the reason I chose asked to be on this committee.
Any questions for James? Right?
No, thank you for all your years of service. And moving on to this with the GFOA, I think is a great idea. So I'm excited to see what you're going to bring to it.
Thank you.
And Tom, anything? No?
No,
Alex?
thank you for
Okay.
No, thank you, Jim.
The next logical jump, Jim, I'm sure you'll do good in there. That's a good group.
You've been there.
Yeah, I've been there, and you bring a lot of
Been there,
expertise.
done that, right?
Yeah, you bring a lot of expertise, so thank you for interviewing. We'll make the announcements at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
And Jim, you were going for a 3-year term? Okay. And Jeffrey? They won't tear the house down too much. Name and address for the record, please.
Jeff Klotz, 487 Converse Street. Apologies to the board, town manager, other people present, and people at home for the children. It happens.
Yeah. Well, they just took off that way, so you're safe. You're going for a re-up on the audit committee.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's been an enjoyable experience. We're in the process of potentially providing a CAFR to the town, which will provide statistical information, which will aid in decision-making. Even without it being incorporated into a full-scale CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, it's a goal of ours this year to have the statistical information out so that we can use it during budgeting, decision-making, et cetera, and people can see trend information. Paul, the finance director, hired somebody from Springfield who has experience preparing this, and they've made great strides with it internally at no additional cost, even though we have money budgeted for it. So this project is going forward very well, and I'm pleased that come next year, we should have something that, it's never audited information, but it won't be part of the audited packet. It'll be a separate informational packet.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Jeff?
Actually, when do you think that would be available on the budget? Are you talking about a year from now, like next May?
There's a draft right now, and one of our action items is to review it. It has not yet been reviewed. So as soon as we get through that, we're doing a planning right now, setting up the year's activities. One of our members right now is approaching a due date, so
Oh.
scheduling is a little bit tough.
Okay,
ahead.
thank you.
Yeah, Jeff, I've always thought that the audit committee ought to take on more than just dollars and cents auditing,
Sure.
but I
We
think
have as an action committee to contact Mr. Law, who was just up here, regarding bond issuance and the questions that arise here. The select board meeting before, somebody said, hey, maybe we should bond to pay employee pension costs or something. So when that moves forward, we'll be active in that.
Yeah, okay. I was also thinking in terms of policies and procedures and not so
We
much the
have-
select
we
board,
have
but,
that as-
okay, good, all right. Thank you.
Any question? Tom?
Just, now you mentioned trending? Is that what I heard?
Statistical information over a 10-year trend is generally how it's pronounced,
Okay.
presented.
Yeah, and I wondered if it would involve, like, looking at trends in other towns in terms of their auditing practices. I mean, I know that might expand
Generally,
the
the
scope.
information provided is for the town.
Yeah,
Within the financial statements, as you know, we do try and say we have the highest tax rate of anybody in the state.
yeah,
We try to show that if our tax revenue base does not continue to stay stable or increase, that
Mhm.
will accelerate our path towards the 2.5 limits.
mhm.
However, in the financial statements themselves, you can't use projections. They have to be actual numbers. So while we can state that information, it's not part of the actual documents.
Now, is there any opportunities for audit committees from different towns of equal size to discuss the process or share
Well,
tech approaches?
What
or
we tend to do is, we hire an auditor who doesn't only see our town, they see many other towns, and we
Right.
rely on their
Oh, I
experience.
see, right. Okay, yeah, right.
I mean, unnecessary meetings aren't productive for anybody.
And we have a new audit group that
We do.
started last year.
L&M,
and-
Lynch, Malloy, Marini.
Yeah,
Either, they had no significant findings, which means either our finance department is absolutely perfect,
mhm.
or statistically, something got through. We don't know.
Okay, right. But there were no mountain peaks that hit, so that was good.
I bet if we asked Paul, he'd tell you which is true.
Yeah.
That's his line. He's like, either I'm perfect or they're wrong.
Any other questions for Jeff? Go ahead, Al.
So you were talking about the $25 limit, which we've talked a fair bit about. And so I can't help but ask you about, because I know you also are in real estate. And the thing that I have trouble believing is that we're going to be flat on real estate values indefinitely. I don't know. Do you have a
agree.
view on that?
Personally, I feel that the tax base will go down.
Really?
The tax base or the tax rate?
The total revenue collected will go down, because as our rate goes up, competing towns will have a better value.
So you think our property values will go down?
As the tax rate goes up. We're not stopping at 25. As you know, we have excluded debt.
Right, right.
And I keep hearing conversations that lead me to believe that the select board and the town will continue down a path of increased excluded debt. And as that happens, maybe not at the higher level income housing, but at the lower level income housing, people are gonna say, my $200,000 buys me a heck of a lot more somewhere else. And I'm sure there'll be a crunch possibly higher than that.
And so what do you see, so places like Agawam or East Long Meadow, their values might go up relative to us?
I'm not saying their values will go up. I'm saying that a person who's shopping for a home may see more value there. They may perceive more value there. Their monthly nut will be less because of the tax rate.
Well, time will tell.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jeff.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
I don't think you're wrong,
All right.
But that's what I.
but time will tell.
That's all.
History will be repeated. That's what's happening in
Let
other
me go
towns.
grab the ragamuffin.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
We'll make an announcement next meeting, 2 weeks. Phil?
Thank you. My name is Phil Hallahan, 74 Eton Road. I'd like to renew my participation on the Council on Aging Board of Directors. I want to make 2 points. First is the vibrant, enthusiastic willingness and dedication of the members of the board, which I have had the privilege of working with the past 3 years. The second is the professional staff which directs the center is absolutely terrific. I look forward to continue my work with them and their effective and efficient programs and services. Thank you.
Okay. Any of the board members have any questions for Phil?
Well, I guess, you know, because you've been involved quite a bit, and you've seen this change in the staff, and having a social worker. As a social worker, I guess I'm kind of partial to know, do you feel that was a good move? Are you really happy with the social worker?
Absolutely.
Being there.
It's vibrant, it's concerned, it's dedicated.
Yeah.
Everyone feels comfortable there talking, and we're going in a very positive direction.
All right, great. Good to hear that
So
news.
the outreach is tremendous,
Mhm.
and, you know, more people will know what's happening, and more will keep coming.
Great.
So it's a plus, plus, plus.
Well, I can't ask for a better ranking than that. Thank you.
Okay,
Any other comments from the board? Thank you for coming in, Phil.
thank you.
And thank you for stepping back up to the plate to be re-upped. Let's see, William Eakin?
William Eakin, 66 Wheel Meadow Drive, Long Meadow. Just want to continue my work with the Cultural Council, having a good time with a great group of people. Anything else?
No, I remember when I was, come in, I think Bobby Burkett was the chair, and he, or maybe it was Rob Asseldine, when I was going back for capital planning. I said, I just like this kind of stuff. They looked at me, they said, are you a fool? You know, but, no.
Well,
No, I
thanks
think-
to Deb House, she makes it all possible.
Yeah. No, I think your point's well taken. Some people really like this, and we enjoy people stepping up to take the challenge.
You know, a still active member had reached out to me. She's still on the board, Jean Maziarz, and we're having a great time. You know, we have an active group of people, and we're trying to not only fund cultural activities in town, but we, as you may know, remember, because we had applied for that one-day liquor license and had 2 consecutive fundraisers that have actually added to the kitty. So thank you for all your support and everyone's support.
Yeah.
LCTV, our pals.
Right. Okay. Any, Maureen?
And you have another one already scheduled for November.
Yep, November 3rd. And this is
November
an
3rd.
early one this week. You know, we had so much success the first year, and because of scheduling conflicts throughout town, we had a little less attendance. Still, you know, not an embarrassment by any stretch, but we've just redoubled our efforts in terms of looking at the calendar and figuring out which best Thursday to pick. And we hope we're right.
Make sure to get back in front of the board for resident comments to announce that event when it gets a little closer.
Indeed, and we'll also be applying for another one-day liquor license.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's a great evening. The wine and the music and the art, it's just really
Another
been a
member of
big
the
addition.
council.
Mhm.
Pete Thompson is, you know, retired music director at Long Meadow High School. He's also a cultural council member and performs at our fundraiser, which happens in Storrs Library each year. So we're looking on building on some of that success.
Good.
Mhm.
Any other board members have any questions for William?
Well, I know recently I saw you doing some video work.
Yeah.
Before the town meeting, and
That's interesting. Again, I'm pointing to my pals at LCTV. I started
Yeah.
volunteering there about 15 years ago, back in the days of Gil Lefkovich, if you remember Gil, what a great guy. And I now do it professionally. So whenever I'm at town meeting, I just jump on a camera, and
yeah.
I like it. I'm good at it, you know?
Now, do those go right to the archives, or are they accessible at all, or?
Do you know those photographs or...
Well, you did some photos, I know, at the meeting we had for all the boards and committees.
Yes. I also do some work for the Long Meadow News.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, when I can capture, I happened to have a card that day, so I didn't have to be on the bleachers. I actually got a picture of Alex, yourself. I don't know if you saw that. I thought it was a nice picture of you.
Oh,
Sorry.
well, thank you.
I hope you did.
Great.
Any
But
other-
so photography and art is sort of my interest, and that's how I got tapped for the Cultural Council, and I've been having a good time ever since.
All right, well, thanks for that. That's another contribution. It's a bonus, I
Yeah,
guess.
bonus.
So thank you.
Yeah,
And when
Thank
do the
you.
applications due if people want to apply for grants? Do you
terrific.
know?
Each year, it's October 15th, so it's easy for even me to remember. So they have to be postmarked October 15th. This is for artists and artisans or scientists, you know, it's open to the arts, interpretive sciences, and culture in general. So those applications would be sent to Town Hall, attention of the Cultural Council, each year, October 15th, so
Okay.
before Halloween.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're a great prompter. I would have missed all of that, Marie.
Thank you for
Thank you for
applying.
coming in, Wim. Sandra?
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Sandy Crine. I live at 226 Greenacre Avenue, and I am up for the Historic District Commission renewal.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
Sure. I was appointed 3 years ago, and after sort of a quiet year, our chair resigned and moved away, and I was tapped to fill that position. And I have to say, it's been, we've had a great couple of years. Been very busy. We've had it's nice to see that there's a lot of activity among the homeowners. They want to maintain their homes. They want to maintain the character of the district, and so it's a pleasure for me, basically, to help them and guide them through that process, and see that work being done, especially on the Young Mansion. I'll just bring it up before anybody else does.
Yeah.
We've been waiting on that one, and that all came together, so we're really happy.
Great. Any questions by the board members?
Thank you.
What do you, Alice, you said?
No, I just thank you for
What,
applying.
what do you think is the biggest challenge?
Well, I think within the district, sometimes I know I hear that it's difficult for folks to kind of, when they're ready to sell the home, because there's a fear, I think, of the commission that we're going to poo-poo any proposals. So I think that's a barrier. So maybe a lack of understanding of what we actually do. And my feeling is that we're not meant to be burdensome. We're basically there to ensure that the character of the historic district remains.
Somebody's
Siri never understands me, even on my own phone. Seriously.
Somebody's iPad just
You
started
never
talking.
So, other than that, I think kind of it's really a lot of it tends to do with sort of the community's lack of information about us, or what our role is, or how large the district really is.
You are an evil, wicked committee, though.
And I keep my tight control on that. But no, because I feel a lot of calls that have nothing to do with us,
Right.
and I just kind of redirect them to where they need to go.
Right.
But
Can you just verify, as long as you've got an audience here, that the Historic District Commission has determined there are windows that can be used that aren't necessarily 100% wood windows?
yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
because I know that,
they are, like, as long as they're sort of metal clad with if it matches the design of the house. If they're 12 over 12, we want to see that. Maybe wood framing, but there are some. Anderson has some nice ones that have come before.
there have
us.
been some issues that, we can't put in energy-efficient windows, and we can't put in these windows, and we can't put in, the fact is, people who live in the Historic District can
Yes, you can.
upgrade the energy efficiency of their
Oh,
windows.
absolutely. And what happens inside, we don't have anything to say. So.
Okay, thank you.
I just had one other question, because I've had people who are critical of Long Meadows windows, because they say that, when you see historic homes, the glass is not
Yeah.
perfectly flat, it's like uneven.
Yeah.
I mean, are there any products that would imitate that?
Oh, I'm
that,
sure there are.
Yeah?
It hasn't come before us. I mean, most people, if they have those windows, and
Tom, I spent 30 years
it's kind
in
of
the
a
window business. I
self-selecting
can get
audience.
all
If you
kinds
want
of-
to buy an 18th century home, it's a certain kind of person, and they want to keep that glass.
Yeah, right.
And my feeling is, if you don't want to buy an 18th century home, or you want to knock it down, well, buy a modern home somewhere else. There's plenty
Yeah.
of those. There's very few historic houses left, so we want to preserve them. But I could imagine that you could buy, there's probably new glass meant to,
Mhm.
you know,
absolutely.
mimic that look.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that is true. I mean, the house next door to me was from 1840s, and the person who bought it said, the ceilings are too low in this house. I need to knock it down.
My advice, buy a new house,
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you for stepping back up to serve. Let's see, Elizabeth Hoff?
Hi, Beth Hoff, 24 Pinewood Hills, and I'm here to apply for the Historic Commission.
Cool. So can you start out, Beth, by saying the difference between the Historic Commission that you applied for and the Historic District Commission, which Sandra has applied for, just so everybody understands at home what that is? Thank you.
We encompass the entire town. We don't really have any authority, but we're more of an advisory board. And the District Commission has more authority for a very limited part of the town, the green and then the 7 houses which were added to it recently.
Thank you. So can you talk a little bit about Stores House and what the Historic Commission is doing?
The Stores House is run by the Historical Society,
Okay.
which is a 501c3 organization, and I can talk about it because I'm also on the board of that. We are doing a great job. I think the people who are in charge of the Stores Museum, there are several new exhibits up. There's one on Stephen Williams there, which I think is well done. I think they did a good job of doing that. Historical Society, there's some cross-pollination between all the different historical organizations in town, which I think is good because it helps keep us in communication. We really are different facets of the same interest in preserving the town's history.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mike?
Do we have problem with storage space in regards for our documents and things like that?
I'm not sure of that.
You're not sure? Okay.
I haven't been keeping up with that.
Yeah, all right. Thanks.
Sorry.
Seeing no other comments, thank you for stepping
Okay.
up to serve again.
Thank you.
Paul Schneider in tonight? Okay. Robert? Spalding?
Bob Spalding, 58 Hazardville Road, Long Meadow. Applying for a renewal on the Recycling Commission.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any comments by the board?
Thank you for your service. Great committee.
Any comments down this way?
Thank you.
Well, it's been fun watching the changes that have come through in recycling from time when I remember driving a truck from the Park and Rec Department going around town and collecting bottles and cans and newspapers, all the way up to the new stuff that's coming.
Mhm.
For example, bulk plastic collection that will begin taking place down at the recycling center.
Mhm.
New things that are coming along with clothing recycling and scrap clothing,
Mhm.
rags and such that are all being recycled. So it keeps new stuff coming.
That's good.
Bob, one of the concerns that I think we've expressed earlier is with Brightwood Hardware leaving town, having a secondary recycling site. Has the recycling commission started speaking or thinking about finding an alternate site in town? My concern is, for example, CFC bulbs or fluorescent light bulbs or button batteries that people who either can't get down to the
Can't get
recycling
down.
center or don't have a recycling sticker, but we still want to keep those out of our waste streams.
That is not something we have talked about.
Can I ask you to bring that back to the
You certainly
recycling
can.
commission so you can? I think finding an alternate, an appropriate alternate site, it might be of
Yeah,
value.
Brentwood has certainly been
Yeah,
a
they've been-
valuable asset.
Yeah, they've been a great partner.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Ellen?
Hi, Ellen Fryman, 56 Terry Drive. And I'm here for the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Board of Appeals. And you're a current member and you're going for a
I've done
reelection.
this a few times. I lost track of how many years.
Yeah.
So,
So, Ellen, what are the challenges of the, now at the ZBA, now that we got rid of or addressed the fence issue and, what
we
are the
still
other
have
corner lot?
we still have a number of provisions
Okay.
that really should be revamped, and now the legislature's taking up some other changes to 40A, so and they're putting in site plan review as a statute now, which it wasn't codified, so that we'll have to look at that.
But will that be done
So-
by the ZBA or by the planning commission?
Well, we do it together.
Oh,
We
okay.
would, we've made recommendations, and when we see things that come before us that we think are issues in our zoning bylaw, so. But I do this for a living, so it's good to be on the other side of the table, so.
So, Marie, were we going to report later on our letter? There's a letter that went out about things that might be changed, and we sent out a letter to the chairs of committees asking for a list of anything that they might want to see changed in either bylaws or
Oh, really?
potentially the charter. So I'd like, if
Okay.
that comes up, or I should
We're
say,
meeting
when that
tomorrow
comes
night,
up.
so
When that comes up,
I'll
it'd be
ask.
great to get a nice, long list back from you folks.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other questions? Thank you for coming in
Okay.
tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes all of our interviews. Is there anybody else out there thought they were going to be interviewed? Okay, good. Motion.
Richard, can I just make a quick comment about our board processes? I've been giving a lot of thought to board processes, mostly because I think most people on the board here understand I work with boards of nonprofits. That's what I do for a living, and I'm just like to suggest that in the coming year, that the select board consider a best practice that is sweeping the nation on nonprofit boards, and that is to have term limits. Even though we sometimes have a challenge of getting people onto the board, I think that, it may make sense for us to do something, and boards do things like three terms on a board, and you have to take a year off, and maybe people during their year off end up, providing some other service or volunteering or whatever. But I think it's a good opportunity. It gets new people on and forces a rotation. I'm not saying we need to do that, but I think we ought to consider that for the coming year, just as a policy for all these boards. I know it's tough sometimes to just get warm bodies, but nevertheless, having good practices might be something, makes sense.
You can expand that to elected officials?
You know what they say?
3
term
terms
limit,
and you're out.
3 terms and you're out. That's fine with me, too.
One of the things that's been discussed here has been a charter review committee for that, not only for terms, but also recall for members who don't show. So I think when that I think is a good topic to focus on as if that discussion ever reemerges, that would be a good one to put in there.
Well, it's going to reemerge, because it really didn't go away. It's just that we just didn't take any action.
No, we have a subcommittee that's
Yeah.
working on that.
We'll be reporting on that at the end of
Yes.
this meeting.
Would you unofficially set up another subcommittee?
No, I
No.
thought that's what you
No,
told us
you
to
set
do the
Mark and
last
I up to
meeting.
do it.
Oh, well then, yeah. Then I stepped in.
Yeah, that's
So
like,
I'd forgotten you guys had started the subcommittee.
But we'll report later.
okay, good.
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
Mr. Spalding, he had 33 years on the recycling commission.
Yeah.
I mean, that's extraordinary, so.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Wow.
33 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I was looking at it.
Well, he said he started with the pickup truck.
Yeah, well, yeah,
brand new.
yeah. I mean, you are right, Mark. I mean, there are some people who have been on some boards for a very long time, but when I see people like Mr. Spalding, it almost would feel impolite to suggest a term limit, I mean, so it's, And I know that when we've done reappointments, as we go along, there's sort of a presumption that if you've been on the board, you're gonna stay on the board, and we have, a number of long-serving members, and, I think on the one hand, I think it probably does deter some people from trying to get on some of these boards, because they figure, well, so-and-so, there are no open spots. But on the other hand, you have, people like Mr. Spalding with, extraordinary records of service, and it's, probably something to really give a lot of thought to in the future, to that balance.
Well, I would think that, there's a difference too between individuals who are members of a board, being on a long time, and people who are in a leadership position for a long period of time. And, so if it wasn't seen as a negative to have a vote of confidence from time to time for leaders of the board, especially if you have a situation where a person's been head of this board for a long period, and just so everyone says, yep, you should still be in charge of this, have members do a vote of confidence on it.
Okay. Well, let me remind the board that this wasn't an agenda item, so we're really not supposed to be discussing it, but it will come back as an agenda item since Margaret mentioned it.
But I wasn't meant for you, Richard.
Sean.
I didn't take a vote for you.
Yeah.
Relax.
Wasn't proposing it as an agenda.
You referred to your own subcommittee.
Yeah, we
That's it.
we got into a discussion like we had it on, but it'll come back. Alex, thanks for your comments. I agree. Somebody's 35 years, and maybe they can grandfather in. So here I'm violating my own thing and talking about it, too. Okay, town manager report.
Thanks, Richard. So I would I have a few things in my report in the packet. First is a long-range plan survey. Like I said, we get another cache of results from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. There's no names or anything. I mean, people fill out the survey somewhat anonymously, or if names are collected. Well, if PVPC is collecting the data, I don't have access to it. So there's not like Joe Smith said, lower taxes, get rid of the town manager. There's nothing. There are comments that are in there like that, but I don't know who said it. But in all sincerity, the results, like I said, we're up over 700, almost 790 responses so far, and we were already planning, I think, as we got closer to the July 31st deadline, to do another push for people to search. But we already think we've gotten a pretty high, according to PVPC, that's a pretty high number of results for a town type survey. And scrolling, I think it was in the packet, right? I think everybody kind of scrolled. It was some interesting reading.
106 pages of it, yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, some
Very
interesting reading. Some of the stuff was, things I think you knew you were going to hear. Some of the things were surprising. I think some of the, like anything, there's low tolerance for certain types of change, and then there was higher tolerance than I anticipated for other kinds of change. And I think that if nothing else, and I think I say this in here, if nothing else, I think it really is going to set the really the foundation for a good discussion with the community going forward about what's Long Meadow's future and what changes. When I talk to people at Long Meadow Days about this, my kind of standard line was, we're proposing to be proactive in our change before we have to be reactive to change that happens to us. And I think that the results of the survey, I think, show that people are hearing that message. Jeff Kloss talked about it. I think it's starting to filter into people. I don't know that it's really modified behaviors at this point, but I think that's coming there. I mean, the first step is at least getting a shared understanding. So if you're listening to this right now and you have not filled out the survey, please do so. Like I said, it'll be open for about another month, a month and a half. So your anonymous voice can be heard.
Stephen, I just want to comment, because there's a wealth of information, and some of it is stuff we've heard at different town meetings and from individuals over time, even when boards come up. And it was a lot to digest, 106 pages, and I wondered if we should have a group of people who would look it over and sort of pick out some of the highlights. You'll probably do that, but I don't know if you'll want help with something like that, because there is, I don't know if there's specific areas that you could take and give it to maybe a board or a committee and say, kind of feedback we got that may have to do with capital planning, and, is there anything that you would pull out of this? Because, that might be another way to use that data with people who are, in those committees. Or
I think my point at this point is to see what we get and
Yeah.
potentially re-engage the PVPC about maybe going through and filtering through some of that information and seeing if they can give us some context and meaning based on their experience with other communities, and go through it. I mean, there's not really a board that would, in terms of that first blush,
Yeah.
I think we would kind of do it internally, and then I think you're right, if there's specific things at committees like the ZBA, there's a lot of questions about zoning. I think
Yeah.
a next step and this is a long range process. This isn't like a get it done in 60 days and put the plan on the shelf. I think we've always intended this to be almost an ongoing dialogue, so the act of planning keeps people talking about it and, rethinking how Long Meadow is, rather than having a goal of getting a document done. But to your point, the stuff on zoning, I'm positive we're gonna engage the ZBA about that at some point in time.
Yeah.
Things about land use, the Conservation Commission will be engaged about that. So I think what we'll do is try to figure out the bigger picture, so as I present this to the boards and committees, I can say, here is the context of what this means, with some guidance from PVPC. But like I said, I think it's good information. I think it'll be, it'll tell, when we carve it into a narrative, I think it'll really say something really interesting and somewhat unexpected about the community's views.
Yeah, I was surprised by a few of the things, but unfortunately, the part that I was most interested in was the last few pages, where we asked people for comments about what they thought would be good changes for the town, and I hope when people review it, they'll get to those last few pages. So,
Like I said, it's not completed yet.
right.
So we have a long ways to go, and hopefully I'd like to get over 1,000
Mhm.
responses, so the rest of the community who didn't fill it out will accept that it does represent a lot of other people's opinions, not just a small number of people's opinions. I think when you're doing surveys, when your response rate or response size is small,
Right.
it doesn't appear that it reflects a majority opinion of the community. But I think if you get over 1,000 people, that really does tell the rest of the community, this does have some merit just by weight.
And I guess the other thing would be that some folks, seniors, may not have access to computers or internet, and maybe by using the senior center might be a way for them to.
They're already doing that.
Okay, so good. So
Senior
they'll-
center and library, we've told everybody, seniors,
great.
if you have a hard time filling out, you can, and it can only be done online for a variety of reasons.
Right.
But if you have trouble with it, go to either the senior center or the store's library, and the folks there are set up to help you through it.
That's the last. Thank you, Marie. Right.
And I just want to emphasize, this is what I'm expecting to happen, and we've been talking about, is that it's not going to be like the last master plan, which we just put on a shelf. There'll actually be goals, and we'll have some steps of what we want to get to, and so it'll be something we'll actually act on. And that's why it's really important for everyone's voice to be heard. And there's some very fascinating things on there, and how do we respond to it, which I'm looking forward to hearing what your suggestions are.
This time, and I'm glad this is going along so well, Stephen, because this is something that Stephen started a year ago. This was part of this talking about this Prop 2.5 and engaging Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to look at our 2004 study. So this is still part of it, and it's building. I'm glad you're getting so much participation now. So I think that demonstrates to me that it was timely. People are concerned. And the message is getting out. I think that's good.
Yeah, I think the message is getting out, but I also think that the feedback we're getting from people who are clearly not following town affairs is also valuable, because there are people who make statements in their comments that just show they haven't, read the reminder in a long time.
Right.
Which is fine. It's not like you're obligated to do that, but I think it just shows the work we have to do to continue to get the message out,
Right.
and how we need to articulate that message so it resonates with people.
Right.
And I think, like I said, and I do think, and I hope everybody agrees, I think just even the sample size we have now shows that there is a great conversation starter in those 100-odd pages with the community. So, like I said, once July 31st comes around, we'll identify some next steps, but I'm sure they'll take longer than you're usually satisfied with, but I do intend this to be like I said, a somewhat lengthy ongoing dialogue, because I've done more than my fair share of planning documents, and they all end up on the shelf. It's the act of going through the planning process, to me, that retains the value, especially in Long Meadow, where we're not gonna get, like, if we were master planning an industrial park, or coming up, or this survey was the precursor to a large economic development strategy, or something like an urban renewal plan or something, that's where you wanna get the plan done, so you can start identifying things to do. This is a little different in that because we're all built out, there's not a lot of there, but I think it's more about getting people's understanding of what our future is and some of the choices that we'll have to make.
And that was the purpose.
That was the purpose.
That was the purpose. Okay.
Richard?
Yeah.
So, I'm having trouble wrapping my mind around sort of what, even 1,000 responses would tell us. I mean, I know from polling, like any poll that requires people to make the decision of whether to participate is not a valid poll. And, obviously this is a little different, but it's kind of the same idea, I mean, do you think that we're going to get something that is somehow representative of the community's views?
I do. I genuinely think now.
So to follow up on that, then how do you deal with what they call the selection bias? I mean, we all agree you'd never poll the presidential race based on who decides to go into the website and express an opinion. You'd never do that if you want to get an accurate result. So how do you deal with that?
Well, like I said, I think the first thing is how you ask the questions, what level of detail, how many people stick with it through the end, because it is a long survey, and I think I think the results show that there's a lot of people that have done a good job filling in all the questions and making comments at each thing, so I think there is a high level of commitment, and I think to some extent how we do this, and there's no scientific way necessarily, but what we do is the people who do this in other communities at PVPC, to some extent I rely on them to say, hey, this is a really good response rate compared to other communities that have had plans that enjoyed broad acceptance by the broader community. That may not be the case here. We may find out that the rest of the people don't think 1,000's enough, but there are limited tools in the toolbox for this kind of public engagement, and we're just using the ones we have at our disposal right now.
I would just comment on that, because, I've taught research in the past, and so, so if I took the information from this survey, which I think is valuable information, and let's say we put together a couple of pages that highlighted that, like, this seems to be the preferences of people in Long Meadow for future development, for dealing with zoning and so forth. And then if we randomly selected a percentage of town and then sent those to those people randomly and asked them for comments, do they agree or disagree, then we might get a more accurate picture. You'd eliminate that selection bias of people who have access to computer, people who are really involved in the town and so forth. So then you could get that more representative sample, but again, like we're finding there's some folks who are part of the sample who really don't know what's going on in town, and so if you did that, you'd also find that you'd find some people would say, well, I don't have any opinion, I just sleep here. So
no, I mean that's my view, of town politics. There's sort of these concentric circles of engagement, right. And the people that are following our every move here is a very small circle.
Right.
And there are a lot of folks, if you look at our town election data, who consistently don't vote, on even, major questions, But something like, we're going to raise your taxes, then they're going to show up. Like, how do you reckon with those preferences, So, I mean, that is a good point. You sort of, so your idea is to sort of distill this information and then sort of present it in some way to a randomly selected group of people.
If you wanted to get a representative sample.
Right,
Yep.
yeah.
That's how you do it.
Makes sense.
It's an interesting idea, Tom. I think that's really interesting.
Oh, yeah, you have to
Yeah.
validate, after you do this, you have to go validate the conclusions you make by going out and testing them. The beauty, Alex, in my mind is, with our town form of government, eventually, yeah, it's gonna be just those who show up, but town meeting gets to decide whether this, actions taken based on this survey are actions the town really wants to take.
Right.
It's like taking the temperature. It's better than just having 5 opinions, which is often what we
Right.
get.
Yeah.
Next item, Stephen?
Sure, any more on that? So I have a note in here about the FY16 budget, and it's somewhat detailed, but the short of it is that we are monitoring some of our accounts that have been overspent because of unanticipated or unbudgeted factors. And I think I've laid those out. Legal services is one. And public safety overtime is another one. Of course, we've been reporting on public safety overtime since September. So early on in the fiscal year, we knew this was going to be a problem, and the police and fire chief started issuing periodic memos to me that I transmit to the board, identifying where the issues were and that this was going to be a problem. We have made numerous requests to the finance committee for their reserve fund, which they have generously granted. So the reserve fund is down for the rest of this month to about $3,000. They will, of course, be replenished on July 1st, but that doesn't help with the FY16 amount. So Paul Pasterzik and I have been talking about options. We don't have a final answer in terms of what our recommended approach is going to be. We may finish off fine within the 5 government functions, or we may need to come back at the next meeting, ask the select board to do a transfer between government functions. And for the folks that don't know, public safety is one government function, and it comprises of police and fire. General government is select board budget, town manager budget, legal services, some of the general things. Community services is the parks and we present our budget with these 5 titles, and they're specific and they have meaning in the world of GASB. There's certain terminology you have to use. So under state law, in the last 2 months of the fiscal year, the select board can authorize transfers between functions. So what that means is if the public safety line item from our budget comes up short because of overtime or other expenses, and Public Works has an overage in an account, we can transfer money in the last 2 months of the fiscal year from Public Works to Public Safety to do that. Right now, it's somewhat nip and tuck. Like I said, we are monitoring it, but I didn't want to come here on the 20th and, surprise everybody. So we just wanted to put it out there that there's a concern.
Yeah, a couple of questions, Stephen. When we prepared the 2016 budget, which was, 18 months ago or something like that, we did reduce the budget for police and fire overtime, but we took the same amount that we reduced it by and put it into the reserve account. So my question is, have we pulled more than that amount out of the reserve account, or have we pulled less than that amount out of the reserve account? And trying to judge whether or not we, how that action was. Now, for the fiscal year starting July 1st, that money's back into the overtime lines. But how did we do?
I think we took the same amount, the 20,000 per.
Right.
From the finance committee back. I think both the police and fire are over even that amount. It's been, and I think as we've reported, it's been an unusual year. There's been injuries, maternity leave, there's been some trainings, turnover. So, like in the public safety standpoint, when you have a situation like that, there are times where, especially if it's turnover and it takes a while to fill a position, you'll have money in your salary line item, but you have to spend a lot more money in overtime to fill the shift, because it's time and a half. So it's a 50% upcharge, but they still have money in their salary line items, and that's where Chief Dearborn and Chief Stankiewicz are going through their accounts to see what's left. They are restricting any non-mandatory expenditures and reviewing any non-mandatory trainings to make sure that they're absolutely essential. You know, like I said, the overall amount that was budgeted for the town operations is sufficient. It's just right now isn't necessarily aligned properly, based on, like I said, somewhat unusual circumstances. So this is just a heads up, and I will, like I said, I'm sure by the time we get to the next meeting, Paul Psterzik will be ready to give a more full presentation. And I think our goal is to make it so we don't have to do that. Our goal is to make sure that the department heads themselves make the adjustments they need to absorb any line item increases.
A couple of other quick questions, Steve. So, do you know how Paul, or how the town will show in their final budget for fiscal year 2016, that reserve revenue? Will that go into, you know, in other words, do the expenditures of these line items go up, and does the reserve go down, so that when we compare year actual to year actual, we actually see that this money was spent on whatever it was pulled from, versus, I think you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Or does it just show in the, right, but to me, it'd be very useful to have that money end up showing where it actually was spent, as opposed to showing it was in the reserve account, it just went somewhere, because then we'll never understand, we have to make it.
It definitely goes to, I mean, the requests, it goes from reserve account to a line item, and I'm certain that we can prepare a year-end summary of that. Now, when we get our 4 or 5 column line item budgets next October, it probably won't be reflected in there, other than there's that comment section. And usually Paul is good about putting the comments in, but it's hard, I think, it'll be hard to overlay those
that's
two
one of the things
things.
I'm interested in. The other thing is, just a couple of quick definitions. You said that in your write-up, deficits being driven by, and you had, one was active collective bargaining. What's active collective bargaining mean to us?
Meaning the contracts are up, and so we're engaged in the process of having meetings regularly with the representatives of the union, whereas when the contracts aren't up, we don't have those bargaining sessions.
So, in other words, we haven't, I mean, it would seem to me that every third year, or every, whatever it is, we should be indicating that through our legal line item budget, and apparently that didn't happen in 2016, or because is that the kind of thing you're indicating?
Wait, say that again?
Well, if we have, and we don't, but if we had no bargaining, we would budget low, higher, but we kind of have a little bit of bargaining going on all over the place.
There's always things that happen, and I think we do is we keep the line item fairly stable, and in the years that there's less issues, we turn back. In fact, last year we had a very positive year of legal fund, and honestly that was a reflection of really peace in the organization, because we weren't really bargaining, and there weren't a lot of, we used the attorneys for grievance hearings and other employment matters, and it was a pretty good year for that. Meaning a good year that we didn't have a lot of that. We've had, but in this fiscal year, the firefighters contract, which was expired last fiscal year, was bargained this year. And we've had, like I said, a few other things that have kind of come up on the radar screen. There was an issue that we had to contest at the Hampton County Retirement Board that was unexpected, that was costly. That's kind of a one-off thing, so it's unusual, and I think we're trying to, like one of the things that we're doing is I've reached out to council and said, there's 3 weeks left in the fiscal year, maybe we'll push back a few of our sessions, or I'll do a few on my own, because there are certain things that are kind of management bargaining issues, and there are certain things that that are contractual that you want the attorney there for. So we're kind of working on reducing those costs till July 1st.
That's fine. The last question I have is that apparently there was a transfer, $25,000 transfer from the reserve fund to further reduce an outstanding band debt. Why would we possibly use the reserve funds to reduce a bond anticipation note debt? I mean, that seems like we just utilized $25,000 out of the reserve fund that,
I think the finance committee did that one. I don't know if that. I don't.
Well, somebody did it, but
I
guess the question is,
I'd have to. I did.
Can we find out what that is? Because that seems to me a very strange.
That was nothing that I ever saw.
Fine, maybe this is just, maybe this is an error, Stephen, but that's what it says. Due to public safety overtime, it says the reduction was due to public safety overtime funds, we understand, as well as $25,000 transfer to further reduce an outstanding band debt. And that, I can't imagine why we'd want to prepay band debts out of the reserve fund.
That's it. Paul told me, and I don't remember
Well,
the
okay, if
specific
you could,
reason,
even
but it was
if you just
something,
email.
we've done a lot with
us.
bands this year,
Oh,
and I'll have him get back to you on that.
Okay, fine, I appreciate that, because obviously taking money out of our reserve fund to pay off short-term debt is problem, I'm sure Paul has a real good reason to do it, but I'd sure like to understand it. I guess that kind of goes with that. Can you also, because of the budgeting process, can we get a list of transfers out of the reserve fund? In the past, we used to get notices when those requests were made. We no longer get the requests, we no longer get minutes of the finance committee that say they've been approved. This is the first I've heard that we're down to $3,050 from a reserve fund that was, I think, $90,000. Now, it's a year into the program, and I gotta tell you, I'd heard about the need for overtime, but hadn't heard of any of these transfer requests, and I think it might be useful for the select board to understand when transfer requests are being made. Not that we have any impact on it, but we do have to do budgeting.
Okay.
And just because your argument is that, because the board is ultimately responsible for the financial situation of the town, and so you think we should be
Well,
notified of
if
that?
we're missing big time on the budget somewhere,
Yeah.
now, we ought to know about it as we go through budget processes, right? Right, Tom? Now, some of these things, they are what they are, and we're not gonna do a whole lot about it, but we ought to understand the overall budget.
And Stephen, just for me to understand, are these things that tend to happen towards the end of the budget cycle, because we're in June now?
No, sometimes
Or is it
throughout.
Go all
Sometimes
through
with
the
And I
year?
think the practice is, and if I thought I'd been adhering to it, I sign a form when it's one for the town operations,
Mhm.
and I think I thought we usually scanned it and either put it in the select board packets or sent it via email. I thought I'd been doing that. There may be a few on it that didn't come through the town. I mean, I'll have to check. Let me get a year-end report on that.
Did you get a lot of them?
No?
I don't remember.
I thought I have it. It's possible I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, the budgeting
No,
thing,
if I
they get the
saw- if I
budget,
saw
and then
it,
they have that for the
I'd
year, so it's not really a budgeting exercise, it's more just keeping tabs on the finance committee.
Okay.
Yeah, you have made announcements that there was.
Yeah, I think probably what I've done is, and maybe I put it in the town manager's report
Yeah.
that if overtime's looking bad, we'll go to the finance
Right.
committee, and maybe I didn't follow up with the
No,
form.
there was never a dollar amount, though.
Right,
What
but
it
I
was.
think we'd always assume that it would be the 20,000 would be the upper limit.
Well, right, and the fact that you now said that you think we've exceeded that
Yeah.
would be of interest to
Yeah,
me.
it may have been a narrative. I may have thought I've done a narrative, but not actually sending you the form. So we can certainly give to you a year-end summary or a year-to-date, whatever. Sure.
DPW.
Okay, DPW. Just a quick update on the committee. They've been doing good work on looking at sites. I think as I've previously reported, they pulled the lens back and they're looking at a whole bunch of other sites, privately owned, publicly owned, just sites over a certain size. And gone through in great detail, looked at them on a screen, looked at any kind of Article 97 restrictions, any kind of conservation restrictions, wetlands, street access, all the topography, all different kinds of factors. And so they have whittled down to about maybe 9 or 10 sites that they're going to be getting into greater depth with at the upcoming meetings. I did send the sites to the select board, and just as kind of an informational piece, so you can see what Weston and Sampson presented to them as they went through their thought process. It wasn't my intent to go through them tonight. I think the DPW committee, with the assistance of Weston and Sampson, will probably go through some of that when they make their presentation to the select board, so I didn't want to get out ahead of the committee too far.
Yeah, I didn't see that on our
I
packet.
sent it under separate cover.
Oh, separate cover. An
It was
email?
too big, the files are too big to go
Oh,
over the
that's right, they
packet.
mentioned, okay, that's
And-
right.
And what you didn't know is when you called it up, it was an image, you had to scroll down to see all the other images. I didn't
Yeah.
know that for a while.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
I was wondering why it was a 15 megabyte file until I scrolled down.
Yeah, it's a lot, and they did a nice job kind of laying things out. They labeled 130 odd sites or something like that. I mean, it was Weston Sampson should be commended.
But Stephen, did you know that, I mean, I had that from the 2011 committee also, not necessarily in that same format, but we had maps with those almost the same sites labeled. So it's, I hope we didn't pay them a lot to do duplicative work, but.
The committee wanted just a fresh start.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm sure we're going to go through the same thing with the Adult Center Building Committee, a similar process. As we go through and look at sites and analyze things, it's going to be very similar. So I think the DPW committee, both committees will eventually come back and report a recommendation, but at least for the DPW, I know it'll include detailed slides and their thought process as they went through them. And I think Rich has been at the meetings. You know, the people that are there, and the one thing that I've tried not to do is try to be directive in looking at the sites, and I think that hopefully the people on the committee will testify that it's been an open process. The committee members have been the ones that have been driving the discussion and making the decisions. Chairman Chris Cove has done a phenomenal job making sure different viewpoints are heard and things are vetted thoroughly. There was a lot of discussion. The one significant action the committee just took was that they voted to eliminate Pondside Road from consideration, which every other task force that's ever looked at this, or not ever, but the last 3 or 4 task forces that have done this have all come to the same conclusion. I think there were at least half of the people, all of the people who were on that committee who were not on the task force, I think all started off with an understanding that it probably could go at the existing location. So to have a near unanimous vote that Pondside Road is not suitable, I think, shows that when you get into the details of the existing site, there is a compelling narrative as to why it simply cannot go there. So we've done that. So we went through that process. Like I said, I would expect by the end of the summer they'll have a recommendation. So the other thing is the Converse Street tip.
Stephen,
yes.
And the DPW
Okay.
sites. Could you let me know, maybe the agenda of which sites they're going to be talking about, since the adult center is sort of looking at some of these same sites it might duplicate. They'd be duplicating work, and instead they could just listen in and hear what your evaluations are of the sites.
Yeah, I think when we have the next Adult Center Committee, I can certainly bring some of those slides and kind of go through them. I think it would be clarifying for the Adult Center Committee as well, yeah, I agree.
Or just let us know if they're doing an evaluation with the architects, and then they could just listen in to what's being said there.
The only thing I'll say, it's a different evaluation, because a site suitable for a DPW may not be suitable for an adult center, and vice versa, because when they go through the consideration of sites, it's not only just size and is it flat and is there drive access, it's how close is it to residential neighborhoods, are there
Trucks driving.
traffic standpoint, it's a
Adult Center
different.
can have trucks driving in if they'd like.
It can, but proximity to residential isn't as big an issue for them, and that's a major concern for DPW. It's somewhat of a minor concern for an adult center because they close at 3:00. By and large. So I think it's something that is a different analysis. But I think when you just show the size, the location, I mean, there's a lot. I think what really was the eye opener is that when you show a lot of these sites and show the conservation restrictions or the topographical considerations or
And that's what we're looking
a number
for.
of things, you end up down to the same handful of sites that they'll be both looking at.
Yeah.
So, and I'm happy to go through that with the Adult Center Building Committee.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, you were saying it was a near unanimous vote on eliminating Pondside?
Mhm.
Do you know what it was?
One person voted against it. I don't remember how many people were there, but it was like 7-1.
Now, has there been any consideration of a less than I think the way you've described it, the DPW for the next 50 years, something that's sort of a more modest, improvement on our current situation?
I think at every phase, and truthfully, at the initial phase of programming, and you've heard me say this, we reduced the scope, or we reduced the size of the proposed building by Weston Sampson. They said, this is what we think you guys need. We took 20% off of that. We haven't really advanced the design conversation, because we hit the point where you can't really design the building anymore until you have a site selected. But to your point, I think there's a few basic things that drive the size and configuration of a DPW that are just must-haves for this community. And once you get beyond those few basic things, there's not a lot of wiggle room to cut things off. And I think I think Mike Richard actually answered that question for somebody at the DPW committee, our Weston Sampson architect. And fortunately, some of the folks who are on our committee are also in the building trades. And they said, yeah, you're right, you're in for a dime, in for a dollar on a lot of these projects. And so we want to have the least expensive possible building we can, because we know that the less money we spend, the better our chances are to get a new facility at a town-wide vote. But the building has to work. If you're going to invest your money, you want to invest it in something that's going to at least serve the town today, even if it's not the 50-year building.
Because, when I went down there, we had the tour, it was in 2013, the parts that look the worst don't seem like that expensive, like garages, right? I mean, we're not going to spend $20 million to have new garages. I mean, so the things that sort of look the worst aren't real expensive, like the salt shed. I mean, again, that's not a huge figure. I mean, has there been any consideration of kind of addressing the most pressing things, the things that look the worst, in kind of a cheaper way? Kind of like what you were talking about a couple of years ago, when you made a proposal to spend, I think it was like $1 million, on the current facility.
Yeah, and thank God we didn't do that, because we never would have gotten permits or anything. Now that I know what I know about it, I never would have proposed it, because it was, it really wasn't even, it wouldn't have been viable even at that time. So the answer to your question is, you are correct that the salt shed is a low cost, comparatively speaking. Low cost elements, even to some extent the garage space that would house all the trucks,
right,
is comparatively speaking on a square foot basis cheaper. But you're going to have administrative space, the mechanical space where we would repair the trucks. That's hugely expensive space, and we need that. And then you have a wash bay, which is also really, we must have a wash bay to take care, because otherwise then you're throwing money down the tubes with vehicles rotting out before they're really time. So there are those types of things. The fuel pumps, which we need, are an expensive component. So the things that seem like they shouldn't be a big deal aren't in the grand scheme of things, but the core things that you must have that drive the cost way up are, like I said, there's little flexibility there. So, and I think we could look at outsourcing and things like that, but if a piece of equipment breaks down in a snowstorm and there's not a service, there really aren't large-scale there's no truck servicing place in Long Meadow for sure. So then if we said we're not going to put a mechanic shop in our DPW, God help us if we're in and stuff breaks in snowstorms all the time.
But that's where we are right now, though.
The guys have the capacity to fix things. They can't put the stuff up on lifts. They have to go out in the snow and lay on the ground.
Right.
But they have capacity to fix our equipment in-house. If we gave that up and said we're not going to do a mechanic, I'll give you, there was a tire shop proposed, like we're fixing tires, and we outsource our tire shop because we don't have one, and that's not as pressing a thing. It's not as a emergency thing. So we took the tire shop out of our design, but there are certain core things that have to be there. And like I said, Alex, it's somewhat maddening in that it's kind of counterintuitive to say, can't we just, do a Butler building and call it a day? And for really detailed reasons, you really can't. So just Congress Street TIP project, that is moving forward. We have sent out certified mailings to the folks who are going to be impacted with temporary easements. And there's an exceptional amount of administrative work that's gone into this, and I do want to commend Mario Mazza and his team at the DPW, along with town council, particularly Mike Schneider, and a paralegal that they dedicated to us for this project. This is really somewhat new territory for us, or no one working on this has really been a part of anything like this, including town council. And it is a highly bureaucratic and regulated function for the federal government, and I just want to take a minute to commend the folks involved for really doing an amazing job managing a really heavy administrative and legal burden to get this done right. So those millions have gone out, and hopefully we'll get the temporary easements. If we do not get them all, we may need to have I hate to say this, we may need to have a special town meeting to do takings. We're trying to avoid that, but we need 100% of the easements in hand to get the funding for the project. So if anybody out there who got a mailing from us is watching, please give us a call and hopefully sign the forms and get it back to us. Right now, we are on track to meet the bid advertising deadline from MassDOT. And like I said, hopefully they will bid this out in the fall. Realistically speaking, if everything goes according to Hoyle, there won't be, their construction wouldn't start till next year, spring or summer next year.
Right?
You're doing the Converse Street. Are we going to be upgrading that traffic signal that's on Dickinson or Converse? We're not going to be looking at any changes to that?
That's outside the limit of work on the project. In fact, the limit of work doesn't even go to the traffic island in front of at the intersection of Converse and Dwight. It's somewhat back from there. I think eventually we will be looking at that. I mean, we'll be looking at that light as a corridor project, but not as a part of this Converse Street project.
And what's a corridor project?
Meaning Benton Drive, Dwight and Williams, and then the intersection of Converse and Dwight, which
Okay.
is a high crash location and is a proposed development I think I've mentioned before that we're in discussions with, that is right there, that's in Long Meadow, it looks like woods now. That may affect that intersection as well, so.
But we're not going to have to break into the road that we just finished fixing because we're delaying work on that traffic signal, are we?
No, the traffic signal did get some upgrades when we did the intersection the first time.
No, we did.
And I don't know if you noticed, but they did widen it and they took out the cobblestone. There was a cobblestone like rumble area. That was supposed to be I guess a traffic calming thing. Took it out, paved it, and restriped it, so there's now a left turn lane and a straight and right turn lane. And that, from what I understand, is reduced queuing time significantly. I know he comes that way every day, so I think it's really made a big difference. So that intersection is functioning a little better than it did before. But in terms of looking at the overall picture of signals, that's something that we are, we're looking at all our intersections through a variety of means, but that intersection is not part of this project.
Okay.
Just a couple follow-up items. Bliss Pool, Reynolds Pool is open. The clay tennis courts that we've been asked about have been conditioned. And I think we're just in a hiring process of getting our seasonal guy who keeps them open for us retained. We did have a mechanical issue at Greenwood that we are resolving, so I expect Greenwood to be open in the very near future as well. And I don't know if you saw it on the Facebook page, but Mr. Potato Head has returned to his rightful spot at Bliss Park.
Good.
Why has he been gone so long?
It really was expensive and difficult to find somebody to fix. I think it's made of fiberglass or something like that. And it really was it was a hard fix.
Huh.
I don't know if you remember it.
Due to the vandalism.
Yeah, he was pretty beat up.
And you heard it here, folks.
Yeah, people just kept chipping away at him.
Yeah. Mr. Potato Head is back. Okay. Anything else, Stephen?
I think that's it for now.
Thank you for a very informative report. I need a motion to accept the May 16th.
I move we approve the May 16th, 2016 regular meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? All opposed?
I'll move we approve the May 23rd, 2016 special meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, and this one here, Alex and Marie were absent. So any discussion by the active members? Seeing none, all in favor? And 2 abstentions, I assume.
Yes.
Yes.
Glen Meadow Water Report.
So I'll introduce it if Pete and Mario can come up as well. You have I think an excellent memorandum in your. I don't know, it's getting hot. It's warm, huh? Okay.
It's warm in here.
I never take off my jacket.
One of the AC
something's
working
going on.
There's the-
If the DPW director was here, he could look into it.
Yeah.
So, you have a detailed report here on the Glen Meadow thing, and there is an executive session scheduled later to in part discussed this matter, and I think some of it, because it involves some personnel issues and some potential, discussions of an agreement, or the creation of an agreement. I think that's best done in executive session. But, certainly this is a matter of public concern. And I'll just give a brief introduction. I think, obviously, if you read the timeline on it, Mario was not here when it got started. And there's a confluence of circumstances that have led to the situation that are somewhat complicated. But the bottom line is, there was we discovered an error in the billing of Glen Meadow Retirement Community. That's, just to be clear, that's the apartment building, the large apartment building which is an elderly community, not the villas, the condo association that we had discussed previously. So they're two totally separate things. This is only the apartments. And so we discovered that there was an error in the billing. Now they had, except for with one exception, they had been receiving bills all the way along since they, and they had a meter switch out. Really, if you want to go back to the, year one of this, it's really 2012 when we did the meter switch out. And through somewhat of a, I guess, a data entry or software setup issue, it was not the meter that we put in was accurately reading the consumption. But our software that reads the meter for the purpose of generating a bill was not set up to read the meter correctly. And so they were getting a bill, they were getting a significant bill for their water consumption, but they weren't being billed for 100% of it. And then we do periodically pull bills and check them, especially larger customers. And the thing is, the other thing to remember is that this is complicated. They have two meters. They have a high flow meter and a low flow meter. So big buildings, hospitals, things like that, they have low flow meters. So if it's the middle of the night and only one person gets up and flushes the toilet, their service line that's large, that goes through the high flow meter doesn't read that usage accurately. So they all have so many of them, and I hope I'm not over my ski tips a little bit here, but basically they have a low flow meter to capture that usage. What? You're doing good. All right. So they capture that usage. And so the high flow meter has been working fine. There's no issue with that. It's only the low flow meter that we're talking about that's at issue here. And so the software wasn't set up properly to read the meter correctly, so they weren't getting billed 100%. When it was, at some point in time, our former employee who handled the billing noticed something amiss with it and pulled the bill, and for a variety of reasons, like I said, that are somewhat dealing with personnel in nature, it never got attended to again and didn't get sent. And then Glen Meadow approached us feeling that their bills were too high, and so we went through a lot of steps in our process. We worked with them, and I give Glen Meadow credit. They've been a good customer, and they support the community, and they've been fairly reasonable about this process. But through the process, we discovered that not only were they not being overcharged, they had been undercharged for a number of years, and I think we laid that out in the memo. So when we when we wanted to make sure we exhausted all or as many of the questions that would be asked on our end as possible before we brought this forward, namely, was the meter working correctly? As you can see, we swapped it out, had it tested independently, it was working correctly, and I think we switched the meter anyway. We put in a new meter just the same. We've been talking to them about, is there a potential leak in their system? They've been looking, they don't think there is. So there is an unknown component to this that neither Glen Meadow nor the town of Long Meadow really can figure out, and that is why their consumption, they believe, is higher than it should be, although I think when you look at similar facilities, we think the consumption's similar, but they believe it's high. So that component is not a part of this discussion. It really is just how much did they use and how much did we bill them for, and the circumstances that got to that gap that we're describing now. So that's the general introduction. If we want to get into the really nitty-gritty, I mean, Pete, I want to commend Pete. He has done a great job really sticking with this, going through the details of it, and I think he did a much better job putting together a timeline that explains this issue than I could have done. I have a hard time keeping it straight myself, so I'll open it up to the
So
Water and Sewer Commission.
we'll keep these discussions to this point technical in nature then.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think in terms of by and large, like what does this mean? What happened to the software? Things like that. We can certainly talk about all of that, but if it gets into personnel issues or other things, I think it's best done in executive session.
Right.
Marty? I don't know if I should be asking Pete or you, I'll start with Pete, because he's the, cut out the middleman, as they say. Steve.
Yeah, go ahead.
But have we had other instances of meter discrepancies with clients on, not even of this magnitude, but just others? And how do we generally handle them in terms of policy when there are, and I'm not talking about the house that has the major leak while they're away and they actually use the water. I'm talking about where we missed a billing or something like that.
Typically, as far as missed billings, this has never happened before on a missed bill. Since I've been here, the 10 years I've been here, well, especially since the new meter program with our new upgraded meters and our new reading system, this is the first time that a bill has been missed that wasn't captured, and a lot of it had to do with kind of a change in employees that were employee that was taking care of the billing system. One particular person had left in the middle.
But have there been instances before where we've had customers come to us that we've had to deal with differences and discrepancies, not, in what they thought they used versus what we thought
Since the new meter
No,
system?
even before that. You've been
Before
around
that,
long.
there was nothing to back it up with. If a person had a question on their bill and they questioned it, and they said, well, we didn't use the water, we had no way to prove that.
And so
We
what was
knew
our,
that
so
we-
what was our general response?
In
to
our bylaws, if there's a discrepancy that they feel that they didn't use the water, and back then, like I said, we couldn't prove it before the meter system, the new one that we have, then in our bylaws, we would go back an average of 3 billing periods, come up with an average, and bill them for that, and then we would change out the meter, or, have the meter tested. But for the most part, they were older meters back then, and we would just change out the meter and go forward and say, this is what we have now, this is the adjustment, and we move forward.
Can I build on that?
Sure.
Because you're asking the same question I asked, which was, how have we handled a situation like this in the past?
Essentially, that's right.
And because I was hoping to say, here's a precedent that was already set.
The
and so
answer is there's-
yeah, the answer is none. And I
Okay.
think what the process Pete described is exactly what we went through with Glen Meadow. As soon
Right.
as they brought this to our attention, we did the averages, we did this, we swapped out the meter, then we get the accurate readings. And like I said, I think the positive thing is that we know the water was counted correctly. So there's no mistake about that. It was not billed correctly. So there's no unaccounted water, there's just unaccounted money.
Okay.
And there really, this really is not an abatement. Like, this is not someone, having a frozen pipe and us, sometimes we'll, if it's an, unusual circumstance, we may provide for an abatement in an unusual situation, but there's nothing like this out there that we can rely on to guide us, and that's why it's here.
Right.
So my understanding is that there was a mistake done in setting up the software to read this meter. And how do we know there's not been a mistake in setting up other meter readings?
Well, just by the particular readings, the whole process is Stephen kind of went through. The codes that were put in when the meters were installed, that information, meters read in either tens, hundreds, or thousands, depending on the size of the meters. And there's a certain code that gets put into it's a Badger and Munis billing software. And depending on if it reads in tens or hundreds, this number has to be put in. Now, normally, as it goes forward, everything gets checked. If they're, especially residential, you kind of know how much water is being used. So if there was an error in a test code circle, then, you know, if it was a smaller number, or really couldn't be smaller, it starts out as one number and then goes up from there depending on the size of the meter. You would see that immediately in the first billing. This particular meter, like I said, kind of unknown to us through that billing is, that was one thing that I was trying to, I didn't want to stop Stephen in his speech, but it was caught, it was corrected, because we knew that there was an issue with this particular meter on this test code circle. It was corrected, but because of the change of employees, it was never billed.
So residents could be pretty confident that there's not an error sitting on there.
Correct.
Because you've sort of looked at it, and you'd be able to and
Correct.
see that one, the residents would jump out.
Right, because the
to you.
process, what happens is anytime we go out and we will do the normal billing reading, I should say the meter reading, before anything is generated, there are actual codes for misreads, low reads, no usage. That gives us, we have a lot of those in the wintertime because there's a lot of people that are snowbirds and they go away for the winter. We check on every single one of those codes or those errors that come up when we read, so we can check. So for the most part, I would say like the first year, we may have had one or two small errors, nothing like this, but we're caught within the first, I'd say, within the first year of the meter readings, but they were very minimal amounts, nothing like what we're talking about now. So yes, they can be, you know, very confident in that, you know, everything that is getting read now is getting read correctly, and it has been. I mean, this is just a small.
And so that's true of the residents, but what about our large users? Have you, because one of the reasons this happened is because it was a large user, and so you didn't have that.
Right, these particular meters, compound meters, we don't have a lot of them. I mean, these particular 3-inch compounds and over. And because of this back in that era, we did go through again and double check them all to make sure that they were correct, and they were.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'll just say, of course, Stephen, you know, the users are never saying, oh, are we happy? You know, we've been paying hundreds of dollars less every month, you know, and just think, you know, we've been getting this great deal. What they're mostly concerned about is what they owe now. And I understand you'll offer them a payment plan if that's, no?
But did I or would I?
Well, I thought I heard you mention, I thought it was mentioned in the material, that's a possibility.
I think what I said is we would bring it to the board, to the Water and Sewer Commission, really.
Oh, the commission, right, okay.
And do that, and I think, and I'll be honest, and maybe I shouldn't, but I shouldn't assume this, but if this was a small amount of money, I probably would try and work something out and bring a recommendation to the commission, to the select board as the commission, and say, here's what I think we should do, but the scope of this is really well beyond anything I would feel comfortable trying to handle on my own. And when we had our initial discussions with Glen Meadow just to see how they take their temperature on it, so to speak, I felt like this is something that the commission needs to work on. But in terms of what we do next, like I said, that's something that I think it really is a negotiating thing. And that's something we should probably do an executive session.
Go ahead, Mark.
All right, thank you.
As I'm going through the billing here, I noticed that, you know, there's an undercharge both for water, but also the sewer aspect of that, because the sewer is pegged to the water. Am I reading that correctly?
You're talking about the estimated bill
Yes.
portion? Well, that was in the memo. Before I got here, there was an agreement that while the meter was being tested, they would estimate it, and I think that was based on the 3 years you had done previously. Am I right about that?
Correct.
So the water and sewer are both estimated, and now that we have the right numbers,
right.
we were still collecting the data, but we were billing on an estimate.
Okay, Peter, just because we have this residential 220 unit cap on sewer charges for water, how do we deal with it for a municipal customer for water? I assume there is no 220 unit cap for sewer.
You're correct. They're commercial properties.
Even
do
if
not-
they have a sprinkler system going through this meter?
No, sprinkler systems, we allow secondary meters for irrigation systems for commercial only because they are not allowed to have a sewer cap.
Okay.
they have a well for their irrigation.
Yeah, okay.
But just other commercial properties, that's the reason why.
We,
Commercial
that was
properties.
because we thought, do you have an irrigation system? Is
Yeah.
that leaking? And their irrigation's on a well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the billing calculations, and the thing that I'm struck by is just the magnitude of the error. I mean, am I reading this correctly? So like the bill
It's a factor
was-
of 10.
Yeah,
They didn't multiply it by 10, which
Right,
is
had
what
it
Ted
wrong.
said.
right.
There's a multiplier.
That's the
in
process of
meter.
these test circle codes, depending on, you know,
Right.
a regular, I'd say like a residential meter, you know, a 5/8 to a 1-inch meter.
Right.
You know, we're reading in tenths, and as you get larger, so it doesn't turn over quicker, the scale is larger on the register head reading. So that number, just think about it, like you said, was put in as almost like it was reading a smaller residential meter, when it wasn't, it was a commercial meter. So it was missing, in tens, so that's why the larger amount.
So,
When it was
so my read of your memo, or Mario's memo, was that, we've satisfied ourselves that they really do owe this money. They've not satisfied themselves that they owe the money.
Right, and we've got, like Stephen said, we've gone through the process where we made sure that when we brought it up with them the first time, and that's one thing I think I started to go into a little bit, these meters, every meter that we have now, we're capable, it's called a meter profile. We can go back and look at hourly readings for 2.5 years.
Right.
So we brought that information forward to them and showed them these were the correct readings. We checked with Badger, we sent the
Right.
equipment out, everything
Well-
was functioning properly, but
No, I mean, this kind of reminds me of the time that my parents were doing a real estate closing, and the realtor and the lawyer messed it up. And then they tried to take my parents to court, and the judge said, look, that was your mistake, that's on you. And I imagine, there's some of that mentality going on here, with Glen Meadow, I guess, one of my questions, and sort of thinking about the reasonableness of this amount, how many people does this complex serve? So like this $69,000,
I believe
spread over.
200. I want to say, talking to them, because there was some discussion back when Mike Rabel and Stephen and myself first sat down with them. We were asking how many people were in that facility, and they were kind of comparing, there were other facilities our size.
Right,
And I
right.
know Jewish Geriatric, I believe that's around 200 or so in that facility also. And so they were similar.
Right.
But,
So-
mechanical wise with chillers, there's larger systems, for heating and cooling, and they have a, pool, they use
Right, so-
kitchens, they use a significant amount of
So when
water.
they got a bill for $1,600 in 2013, which would have been, that was $1,600 for 200 people. That's like $8 worth of water per person,
Right.
which obviously is, there's no way they use that little, right?
And I understand the remark you made about, like you said with your parents, they were
Yeah,
saying,
right.
okay, well, you missed it, that's too bad.
Yeah, right.
Well, we did miss a $14,000 bill that was
Right,
never billed,
right.
but if you
Yeah.
bring that up to the gas company or the electric company,
Right,
and
right,
use that
right.
same attitude,
Yeah.
you're not going to have a gas or electric in your house.
Does Glen Meadow kind of recognize that there's some kind of shortfall, like, there's no way that they should have been paying $1,600,
I think they realize that now, and that's what, and honestly, like I said, that's what makes this something that I think merits some discussion. Is that there was clearly an error. It was clearly our error, and we did rectify it, and then compounded it by not sending the right bill right away. And I would say, looking ahead, Glen Meadow understands their consumption profile. They understand they have a new meter. They paid, once we went through this, they paid their bills promptly and in full, and I believe they will continue to do so going forward. But there is this balance, and there is a responsibility on us because the balance was created by an error on our end, but at the same time, water was still consumed. And that's what I struggle with, and I think, Alex, you hit the nail on the head. It's what's fair.
I just have, what you provided us, Pete, is a history from 2012, which was our new meters going forward. Do we have any, bill data from prior to the meters, so we understand what was being paid on a 6-month basis under the old system? Under the old billing system? And
Yes, we do. And just a little history about this meter. When, in 2012, because a lot of the meters in town, I believe there was maybe 40% of our meters, because of the age, were still
replaced
under a
them when we-
warranty. It was called a retrofit.
Right.
Where all we did was just basically replace the mechanics or the generator head and the reading system on these meters to save us money, which had saved us a substantial amount of money. This was that particular meter. The old meter, I should say, the body of the meter itself stayed.
Okay,
And
that's
that
the gears that
particular
the
one
water
was a
goes
total
through, right.
suminator generator, which that meant that it took the high and the low read, combined them together, so when we went out and we read, it was just one read, a total of high consumption and low consumption. So when we did the new system, then it was broken up with a generator high and low, so then they had one account for that meter, it got put into 2 accounts.
No,
So that's
I appreciate that. I guess
we have that information going back prior to 2012.
Okay, well, my
From when the
question,
meter
though,
was
Pete,
put
is
in for
based
the
on,
usage.
and it's kind of like Alex Grant's question, but, if I'm a homeowner and my water bill is 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, then I start getting 100, 100, 100, and I'm saying, well, hey, I'm just gonna pay the 100. In my mind, I gotta figure something went different, either that or, and that's my question. And was it, 1,000, 1,000, and it dropped to 1/10 of it, or was it in fact way back then 100, 100, 100? Now we're saying, no, it's really 1,000.
No, we have usage going back on the original meter from, in Munis, I guess that's when the
Right,
billing got
but,
1999.
but that usage is consistent with what the corrected, with what this consistent usage is, and I gotta believe that the billing is consistent with what the corrected
Right, if you look
billing
at-
is.
if you
I
look
mean,
The billing now.
Or
And the
consumption,
billing
I should say
then.
consumption.
I mean, granted, our water rates back then were 220 and now they're 270,
Yeah.
but, or what, or 240, but, it's not, it wasn't a tenth, that's
And you
all.
put a new meter in, so it's likely more accurate on capturing, so.
No, but my point is that, somewhere there was when there was a billing error on our part, the bill that was going out was 1/10 of what it had been previously. That's all I'm trying to establish.
The facility's been there since the mid-'90s, so there has to be a pretty good history.
Right, okay.
Do we have any more technical
Yeah,
questions
just
to ask?
maybe we should reserve the rest of the discussion.
I think
No, so. that's fine.
Forward,
Yeah. Any more technical questions of the group here? Any member? Okay,
No,
okay.
thank you.
So hang in there. Not there.
So,
We're gonna go into executive session.
no, I get that, but to discuss how to deal with this
Right,
difference of opinion?
right.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do it in the executive session.
Oh, actually, can I add one
Yeah,
while
yeah,
they're
sure.
here?
Go ahead.
I'm glad that you guys are here, because I wanted to thank one of your employees, and unfortunately, I don't remember his name. I am the youth track coordinator, and we were having our meet on Saturday, and he had to mow the grass. I guess you probably knew about this, and which was going to kind of get in the way with what we were doing, because they had the lacrosse game later that day, and it's been a bit of a challenge, sort of balancing the needs of our program and the high school sports. And the fellow, and I spoke to him briefly before he started, and he was there early. I was there early. I think it's like 7 o'clock, and he said that he got there early to try to get it done so it wouldn't interfere with our track meet, which is what happened. And so I thank you.
I appreciate that information. I had heard the same story
Yes.
from the employee's name, Scott.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for coming in, guys.
Thank you.
New business. Stephen, is this lady and gentleman from Booth Road?
They are here from Booth Street.
Booth Street. Folks, why don't you come on up?
Yeah, I'm gonna introduce this, if you,
Okay.
introduce the issue while they,
But-
no, go ahead.
Yeah.
This came across my radar screen.
Pass this down, just so people can see what we're talking about here.
This kind of came across my radar screen through Paul Healy.
Give me one for, do you have an extra?
I have an extra one.
No, this is something.
This
from
is
that-
Mark's.
oh,
I have one.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, you did? Well, here's one for Danny. You got one. Oh, you get two.
So, and this is, we have a file that we refer to frequently in our department head meetings that's called the "You Can't Make This Up" file. And this one is straight out of that file. So, the southernmost street in Longmeadow is Booth Street.
It's actually, the street sign itself
It says Booth Road.
is Booth Road.
Right. But it is Booth Street in
You can't make this
Longmeadow.
up.
Okay, for the record, can you give us your name and address,
I'm
please?
sorry, my name is Ryan Woods. This is Adria Bolgassi, my fiance. We live at 22 Booth Street Road.
Street.
Okay, okay,
So
thank you,
it's,
thank you.
yeah, it's 22 Booth Street, but the sign says Booth Road. It's I'm guessing an Enfield, Connecticut street sign, because as soon as you pass, 100 yards down Booth Street, it goes to Booth Road. Now, if you continue down Booth Road in Enfield, it turns again into Booth Street in Enfield, just to make things even more confusing.
And
That's what
Yeah, so anyway, Ryan emailed our department, and unfortunately, and this has become a familiar refrain here, because of some turnover, the issue kind of languished a little bit. And when it came back to my attention, we quite frankly weren't sure how to deal with it, so we reached out to town council. You guys all have had a copy of that correspondence, and the selectmen can do that. I think we all kind of thought the post office would do it, but they said no. The selectmen should do it, but I give Ryan credit. He put a lot of time and energy into finding out through the post office and other channels how to do this, and then it turned out it's the select board's role to number it. And it seems like an easy thing to do, as you saw from them. I did forward language for a recommended motion from town council earlier today. I went out today, and I hadn't gone out before. I was familiar with the situation, but I finally went out today, and in a moment of serendipity, the letter carrier for the neighborhood, for the Enfield side, was there. And I think the big concern that Ryan laid out, and I'll let him speak for his own concerns, was certainly mail delivery, but also, I'll speak from our side, public safety is an issue, because he had an experience.
we were in Scottsdale, and an ambulance sat in our driveway for almost 90 minutes. And their attempt was to reach a woman that apparently was having a heart attack at 22 Booth, 4 houses down from us.
Yeah.
So there's a 22 Booth Street, me, I guess, and 4 houses down from me is 22 Booth. Literally down the street.
Well,
But
actually,
then
what's crazy
there's
is-
a 22 Booth Street also in Enfield that's down around the corner.
It is. I've had an opportunity to speak to the postman. 2 different. I went to the post office in East Longmeadow to try to get an idea, because Booth Street actually creates a firm right angle like this, and then intersects Booth Road. And Longmeadow recognizes our street as Booth Street, even though the signage says Booth Road. And then there's actually a Booth Street that intersects our street that also creates a right angle, and all the numbers are duplicated between Booth Road and Booth Street. And I was, what you had said is about.
That's why I did this, because you couldn't.
It's- it
So I
is-
put together this map, Ryan, because I
I've become
didn't
very
believe it until I
familiar with
looked
my
at it.
neighbor over the course of the 7 years that I've been a resident. She brings my mail to me 2 or 3 times a week. So that's, when we exchange mail back and forth, that's not an issue. It was the ambulance that concerned me, especially since we weren't home and there was no one to tell them that it wasn't for us. They assumed that somebody was either passed out in the house
All right, yeah.
and
Sure.
obviously looking
So
for.
they went to Booth Road?
So she lives on 22 Booth Road in Enfield.
Yeah,
I live on 22 Booth Road in Longmeadow.
yeah.
It really says the street sign, but
Right,
it says
right.
road, even though
Yeah.
Longmeadow recognizes it as
Yeah.
street. But we're 4 houses apart.
Well, what's crazy is, on his side of the street, the numbers go from even to odd as soon as you cross into Enfield, and then on the other side of the street, it goes the other way.
It's
So
it's a tough layout,
you can't
to
make
say
it
the least.
Once we realize, sorry, Alex.
Well, I was just gonna say, this it seems like, it seems like this might be something to, deal with Enfield, to come up with a coherent numbering scheme for both, right?
I would say that the opinion we have is that under Mass General Law, it's the select board's purview to number the things, so you can just take the action. Now, I don't know about-
I get your
Yeah.
point, but it seems like whatever we do, there's still gonna be confusion.
I think as long as the number, and I don't know, I want to speak for
Well,
everybody.
I mean,
think
like, one issue is what he just said, the sign says Booth Road, right?
Yeah.
So,
And
if
recommend-
somebody says, I'm on Booth Road, they're not, there could be confusion, right? Just because the sign says that, you know, I mean, I guess what I'm saying,
Our
it
neighbor-
complicates things to deal with another municipality, but whatever we do, it's not gonna,
We have-
solve it.
I'm surprised that my neighbor, who's been in this town his entire life, hasn't come here, because he's got the most confusing address in the street. He is 7 Booth Road in Enfield and 35 Booth Street in Long Meadow, and he's recognized by both towns.
Does he pay taxes?
I have never got into it, but it is.
What his house straddles the line?
It straddles the line,
Right,
and
that's when it goes to his
he's
house
got
property line.
dueling house numbers
Yeah.
on his house.
Just be careful where he takes from
There's
one
a
side
lot
of the
of-
house
I
to
think,
the other.
Alex, to your point,
Interstate,
It's where your
travel.
bed, it's where your bedroom is.
The request that the couple made to us was to switch the house number, and I thought, that's an easy enough, once we got the opinion from council, it's an easy enough thing to do. The bigger question of the street sign, the only way to do it would be have 2 street signs. I think that would lead to even more confusion. I think most people going in, they'll drive down, they'll see Booth, and focus less on street or road. But I have to tell you, it's so, the vast minority of the street, of the actual roadway, is Booth Street. Much more of it is Booth Road in Enfield, and that's why I think the sign is more descriptive of what most of the street is versus the small amount of space that you can see on Mark's map that we have.
But the intersection of Route 5 and Booth Street is in Long Meadow, and so I would think it would have a Long Meadow street sign in Long Meadow at that intersection.
Maybe perhaps someone made it's also got that turn lane coming out of the highway that is almost inexplicable.
No, I can explain that.
We can explain it.
And that
Well, I
may
know
be
exactly why that
and that
happened.
may be why the street sign is there as well, because I've heard that story too.
Right,
But I
so-
think it's just, for the purposes of helping the couple out, I would just recommend that the board use the language provided by town council and allow, change the house number so we can at least move forward with that. The
Well-
bigger question about the street issue is one that I think, Mike Schneider laid out is a larger kettle of fish.
I mean, it seems like the solution would be to call that whole Booth Street, Booth Road in Long Meadow one thing. And again, Enfield have to cooperate and have one consecutive numbering system that would start in Long Meadow and then not reset in Enfield.
I mean-
Then everybody would know what street it was, and there'd be a unique number associated with it. I mean, again, like, you'd have to work with them, but it seems like what you're talking about, I mean, like, I'm still sort of waiting for the punchline to the end of the story. Like, did somebody die,
No,
while
I
they were
honestly
waiting
have no
90 minutes,
idea. In fairness, over the course of the last 3 years, she's been in grad school in Albany, and we have an apartment up there, so
Yeah,
I spent
yeah.
a lot of time up there.
Yeah.
Because I can travel for work, and so it's not really been an area of concern. I haven't
Sure,
seen much
sure.
of her. I don't even know if she's still there. I know that the first 4 years that I
Right,
lived there,
right.
she was at our house 2-3 days a week, dropping off packages and mail.
Yeah.
And, I talked to neighbors on the street, aside from me, and there is constant confusion because there's a Booth Street, a Booth Road, and it depends on which way you're coming from where you get
Right.
confused, because
Right.
nobody thinks that Booth
Right.
and Booth are gonna intersect each other.
Right.
Murray?
I think it makes sense to make it the 22L, isn't that what you recommended?
No.
Oh, you didn't, you
No, just
recommended?
number one.
Just number 1.
Which, honestly, if we do that tonight, they can move forward. And Alex, to your point, if we were gonna do what you suggest, their house would still be number 1. Because the houses on their side of the street are the odd numbered houses. And it's the first house you come to.
Would we be one Booth Road? And the only reason why I ask Stephen this question is when I was talking to the last postman, this was 2 days ago, he said that the other confusion on these streets is that the way that typically, I guess the post office assumes where the driveway intersects with the street, that's the street the house is on. So if the driveway dumps out onto Booth Road, then it gets a Booth Road address. There is a one marble Road in Enfield, the only driveway, the only connection, the house faces Booth Street. The driveway intersects into Booth Street. There's no connection to Marble whatsoever, but it's classified as one Marble. So if we maintain the one Booth Street, and a new mail carrier comes, my only assumption is that they might get us confused yet again. So Dree and I went through with the post office, sat down, and the only numbers that seem to be completely irregular, there's no duplicates on either street, is 3 and 31.
But he said that there was no other one.
There is no one. There is no. But my only concern is unless you're going to say specifically, definitively, it's one Booth Road in Long Meadow, there is a house, if you go there, that is physically sitting on Booth Street. The driveway comes out into Booth Street. You would assume that it's Booth Street.
And it has the number 1 on the mailbox.
It's got 1, but it's 1 Marble, which is the road that it's adjacent to.
And by the way, if you look at on Google, and you can't see what we have in front of us, but somebody put 101 on their number of Booth Street to keep it from being confused with 1 Marble, which is just up the
because
street.
the way the house
Because 1
sits-
Marble is across from 7.
I'm sorry.
Are you asking for 3 then?
3 is a unique number.
Okay,
I
so-
couldn't find a 3. No one at the post office could find a 3, but again, these numbers seem to populate out of the
Let's
blue.
just- we'll do 3.
There's houses that are tucked away into the
Yeah.
woods. I didn't walk into the driveway for fear of scaring anyone, but there is houses that are recessed, kind of
No.
tucked off into the corners, but it appears, based
No.
on our conversation, that 3
No.
and 31 are completely unique.
And you actually have a Connecticut, because they split the states.
I am
You have a
fully in Long-
Connecticut.
I'm fully Long Meadow.
But your delivery service, your
Comes from
postman is from Connecticut, right?
I get 2 people delivering to our house.
Oh, I see, okay. Because I know they split up, because I asked the postman once, and he said, no,
I have
Connecticut's
the Long
one.
Meadow postman
No,
drives up in a vehicle.
The guy I talked to today, letter carrier I spoke with today, said he only goes to the line. But he had talked to you. And
Yeah.
his, like I said, his recommendation
He
was
works out of East Long
1,
Meadow,
but
right.
number, I think 1, 3, what difference does it make?
Well, the question, like I said, I was so confused I had to draw a map here. But the question, Stephen, that's even more, and that concerns us as well as the public safety issue, is there any way we can't write a letter or shouldn't write a letter to the Enfield, town and let them know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and recommend they look into renumbering these, starting Booth Road and Booth Street consecutively, just so they don't have that confusion. But I think if we start with
the lives
this,
of a lot of people on that road. 'Cause I've talked to a lot of people, and this is an issue that they're all having.
yeah, but I think if we start with a low number like a 3 and just let them move up from 3, they'll be down to 350 down by the end, but at least there will be no other 3s.
I see they have I think a brand new town manager, so I see no issue in reaching out to them.
But they may not even be aware of the seriousness of this, and in fact, it's probably more their residents who were impacted.
It's definitely, by number, it's definitely more of their residents that are impacted by it. No, I can certainly do that. I don't want to delay action.
What is I was trying to read it. Do you have the motion? 'Cause
Yeah, I have
I'm
it.
not
I've got it here.
unlinking open.
So I'll read it. I move the Board of Selectmen pursuant to Article 4, Chapter 200, Section 4-201 of the Town of Long Meadow bylaws, renumber the property known as 22 Booth Street as 3 Booth Street, and take any other action relative thereto. Now, the question is, do you want a 3L in front
No,
of it?
I guess the L would make it confusing.
Yeah.
The thing that I wanted to
Okay.
know is, again, it's the fact that there is a street. I know it's not a unique, it is a unique number that we're selecting, but there's a Booth Road, Booth Street, and I just fear coming from either direction, there could be confusion still.
Well, the question is, can we direct the DPW to install a second sign at that intersection? So, because generally what you'll see is it says Booth Street and then Booth Road with an arrow, so people know to go down there to get to Booth Road,
We
too.
can look into it. And
I'm not saying that
you
they
can just,
can do
they
it.
have the ones where you can just clamp it and put it above
Yeah.
a lumber. I feel like that's even more confusing.
I think, is it possible just to call our house Booth Road? Is that
You can call
possible?
anything you want to, but I
no.
don't think we can
No,
because
you
of what
cannot,
it.
and that's
We
what the
can't
town
change.
council did say. There's an appeal thing, and I didn't get a full explanation, but the town council's guidance was stay away from that part of it.
Right, for us to stay away from whatever.
Right, so why don't
You
we
can put anything after
I would
the
recommend
Booth
taking
Road.
this action, and then I'll reach out to the town of Enfield and see where we go from there.
Yeah,
All
make
right, so I'll
stuff up.
second the motion.
All right,
to
so
make
we'll call
it
it 3
3.
Booth Street.
Booth, yeah.
That's where we'll go.
Well, depends.
Oh, sorry.
You need three select board votes before you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay, we've got a motion, we got a second. Any other discussion? Go ahead.
I guess
Al.
I would just, the thing that does concern me is the public safety. You know, I would just hate, you know, if somebody, it's a life or death situation, and, you know, we had to have a map to figure this out, you know, and, you know, this is just so rife for error. So I would really strongly recommend that the town manager follow up on this and report back to the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said he's already made a commitment. He's going to get with the Enfield town manager.
Great.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Congratulations, you're number 3.
Thank you for your
Now you have to go buy the
assistance.
number.
Now,
Okay, so
with a lower number, the taxes go up, you know.
Yeah, I will,
Joking.
I'll make sure there's nothing more you need to, I mean, you, I think, already have a sense of all the things you need to do to take care of it on your end, credit card companies,
Yes.
post office. So go do your thing, I think is,
we can just start changing it now.
I believe so. I'm gonna,
And go to Google and go, seriously, and go to Waze and you send them an email and they'll look into it because then people will find it. You know, and they're really good about checking it out. I mean, you send them that kind of thing and they, I don't know how they do it, but they check it out and they'll make the changes.
Your homeowner's insurance, of course.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm emailing our attorney now, and just to ask if there's anything else we need to do to fully implement this. I'll let you know if anything comes up.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay, you're
folks.
welcome.
Sorry it took us so long to get to you. Can I have a motion to approve the annual town election warrant?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? And for folks at home, the warrant has, this year it has 2 select board members for 3-year terms. It has 2 school committee members for 3-year terms. It has 1 planning board member for a 5-year term and 1 housing authority member for a 5-year term. And I believe everybody is running uncontested races this year. Okay? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Right.
All opposed? Okay. Pass. Do you have the original over there that you need signatures on, Stephen?
Yes. Who seconded that?
No, Alex.
Alex?
I move we approve the block party request from Brittany Road for October 2nd with a rain date of October 3rd.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor? You want to take the liquor license?
Oh, okay, yeah. Let me just pull this up.
Okay. I got a hard copy.
Yeah, okay, I'll move we approve the one-day liquor license request for Bay Path University for June 22nd, 2016.
I'll second. Any discussion on the one-day liquor license? All in favor? All opposed? Passed unanimous. Okay, we have a tax title appointment. And let's see, we made this appointment, no, we're going to have the appointment tonight.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah, I move that we approve, appoint Cheryl Cudnick as tax title custodian through June 30th, 2017 pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 60, Section 77B.
I'll second it.
Huh?
Any discussion on the
I just went to the
reappointment?
second one.
All in favor? That one's coming around too, Stephen, for signature?
it's all in the same package.
Okay.
Where's
Tax-
our graphic?
That was the tax title appointment, the Commission on Disability. Stephen, you want to run this issue?
I know everyone received a copy of this in their packet from the state. I don't know if we want to take an action on it tonight, or if we would need a, some kind of bylaw to implement this. I actually, I didn't read it, to be honest with you. I went in the packet, because I think all you had received it.
Mhm.
And I think it's just kind of a heads up on it to see if this is something the board's interested in. And maybe this is something that the next board
Right.
should really entertain, and the new chair should
Well-
decide if they want to take it forward.
The way I read statute was that town meeting had to establish it.
Well, there you have it.
What's that?
I said, that- no, I think I put it on the, I suggested to Rich we put it on the agenda because everyone had received it in their packets.
Right.
And I just wanted to kind of just
Right.
publicly say we have received this and this is something we're going to consider as we prepare the town meeting. I don't know. Make a statement that you're thinking about it or not.
You want to put this for more discussion at the next meeting?
Well, it's up to the next chair. Whoever that's gonna be.
No, we
I-
can make that decision now.
Yeah.
There is no next year.
I have a question for Alex. I'm sorry, where did you see it had to be a town meeting?
If you look in the document, it's like the third page. So the statute, chapter 40, section 8J, it talks about a city which accepts the provisions or a town which accepts the provisions at an annual or special town meeting
Oh, I didn't
may
even see that.
establish a
Okay.
commission on disability. So, and then it goes on, but, so it sounds like that would have to be a town meeting vote.
Mm-hmm.
I missed that too. Sorry.
Pardon?
I said I missed that as well. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay, so why don't we, we're not gonna take any action on this tonight, so why don't we just put it on the next agenda, so we'll let the next board deal with that issue. Let's see what else we got here. Any subcommittee reports?
Yeah, well, why don't you talk about yours, and I'll talk about the liaison for.
So at either the last select board meeting or two select board meetings ago, there was a subcommittee formed to talk about potential changes to the charter and/or bylaws. And Marie contacted me, and so together we kind of ad hoc part of what was already a board subcommittee. But we developed and sent out a letter to chairs of all of our committees, board committees and elected committees, and essentially said, can you please put on the agenda over the next month or so at your committee, a request for your committee to identify issues that would help with the making your life a lot easier if in fact they were clarifications or changes to either bylaws or potentially to the charter. And within, Debbie, thank you for sending it out, within 72 hours or something like that, we've got back, I don't know, say 4 or 5 responses. And there were some pretty good suggestions in those 4 or 5 responses, and hopefully the couple of the other committees will bring it up at their committee meetings and think about it and come back with some suggestions of what we might do. I will tell you that in those 4 or 5 responses, most sound like those so far could be taken care of through bylaw changes or policy changes or just kind of going out and doing things. That might help. But I think it was a good exercise to ask the questions. We'll see what happens and put them all together when we get a few more responses and bring it back to the board here to see. So here are the suggestions. How do we want to deal with them? I don't know, Marie, if you saw the responses too, if you got any other suggestions.
And the purpose of this is?
Well, it was to find out, you would raise the question, Richard, do we want a charter commission or do we want a bylaw commission? So, we're trying to get a sense of.
No, a committee or a commission.
A committee or a commission. And is there a burning platform out there where, the boards and committees of our town realize that they need or perceive they need significant changes that would warrant either a committee or a commission? And so let's go, we're trying to figure out how many issues are there, how many things do need to be addressed, if it's, it's just a.
We haven't polled these members, though, have we?
No, but we can do that.
Okay.
And we can add that. The question, though, was, if it's simply, can you, we think it would be better to have town meetings available on Saturdays, which we can't do by charter right now, then that would require a different response from some of the other things we're getting, which were, were different from that. That's all.
Okay.
There's no final status at this point.
I'm really surprised I didn't know what was going on, though.
No, I told you I would.
Yeah.
You were too busy in the
I don't think
fields.
so. Anyway, Sounds good, sounds good.
And then I just was going to report on the liaison with the COA and the Adult Building Committee has started up, and they immediately have their officers, and things are moving along very nicely, and I think they want to, sometime in the next few months, come and present something in front of the board. But they've taken off, and I'm just a quiet observer on the side.
Oh, boy. Yeah. You heard it here first, folks. Marie Angelides, a quiet observer.
I know that before we adjourn, I don't know if we'd resolved the issue of my time request. It's not on the agenda, but if we leave it to the next meeting, the potential to...
I said I was going to add that to the agenda. Yeah, and I failed to put that note in there. So we will have it. We had talked, Stephen had sent a request out, solicited each member. You want to go over the details of that?
Well, just as I laid out, I have, if I don't take any more, I'm going to, using a personal day, Wednesday, I think I reported to the board to go chaperone actually a field trip to Boston with Center School, which I'm actually looking very much forward to. But I really didn't take a lot of time off this past year, and so I have, which normally doesn't happen. I normally meet out my vacation time, so I carry over a few days. But this year I didn't do that. Now I have a long planned vacation coming up in August, starting August 1st, and I don't accrue vacation time fast enough to use that. And typically what's happened in the past is employees are in this situation, we sometimes let people borrow ahead, but our Munis software, which tracks payroll and things like that, won't allow that. And so I want to be, honest and transparent about my use of time, and under my contract, I'm allowed to carry over 5 days, and so I'm requesting to carry over up to 12, most of which would be used by the middle to end of August. So I would still end up with a normal carryover. What makes this complicated is my vacation year for purposes of accounting is July 1st. Almost every other employee has their vacation year on their anniversary date. For me, that's April 2nd. If my vacation accruals, annual accruals start on April 2nd, I wouldn't be in this situation. I would have accrued enough time in addition to a carryover, which I would set aside to make sure I had enough time to have the vacation with my family. But because of the June 30th thing, it kind of messes it up. And it hasn't been an issue in the past. It just so happens that this time around, and because of the change in Munis, it's complicating for me. And so I wanted to kind of nail this down, because if not, I'm going to have to use the time in June, which would complicate a lot of the things that I'm trying to do for the town right now. So I think I should have planned ahead a little bit better so I wouldn't be in this situation, and I think in the future I will. Or if something needs to be done differently, maybe go back to my anniversary date for a cool vacation or something like that. But I would look at this as something non-precedent setting. And so I'd ask for the board's consideration, let me carry over a more than normal amount. If they wanted to limit the carryover to a certain amount of time, like the end of August, to make sure I burn it all and not bank it, which I would do if it was somebody asking me. I would certainly be open to that, but I just want to make sure that my use of time is, like I said, and the accounting of it is as transparent as possible.
Okay. So he's got that. Why don't we get a motion to approve, and then we'll go into discussion.
Can I just get the numbers a little bit straightened out, Steve?
Mm-hmm.
So you get 20 days vacation, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, and you've used 7, you're going to use another one on Wednesday kind of thing?
Let me open, and Debbie, I should say, is the guardian of the spreadsheet that keeps track of all this. So and it goes to our payroll department.
Right.
So I want to, for people at home, is the independent verification
Okay, no,
of
that's
what
fine.
I do. I want to make sure that I'm not cooking the books on this.
I don't feel assurance on that.
So, yes, currently I have, at the end of May, as of May 31st, I had 12.34 vacation days and 2.1 personal days. So that'll be 1.1 personal days as of Wednesday, or as of Thursday. And then I'm gonna accrue another 1.67 vacation days, during the course of June. So if I don't take any other time off, and right now I don't have any plans to, I'll have 14 vacation days and 1 personal day. That's 3 weeks, if you're keeping score at home. So if you go back to April, it'd be April, May, June, July, that's 1.67 times 4, plus if I carried over some number of vacation days from before, I would have the 10 days, the 10 vacation days I would need to do this, like I said, long-standing vacation with my extended family. So that's where those numbers come from. And like I said, I understand it's somewhat of an unusual thing, and I don't, like I said, this of course was, like I said, I look at this as hopefully a one-time thing, and I'll make arrangements better.
Personal days aren't generally carried over. It's vacation days that can be carried over, right? Right, okay.
So
Right.
I'm confused. Was it 14 or 12?
It's 14 vacation.
That you're looking
That
to
you will
carry
have at
over.
the
That I
end
will
of June,
accrue.
by the end of June.
But you're asking to carry over 12?
Right.
Oh, okay.
I'll use 2 days before the end of the year.
Do you have that straight, Mark?
Yeah, I
Ready
got
for
it.
a motion? Okay. So I move to allow 12, for the town manager to be allowed to carry over 12 days to be used by September 1st.
Okay, I'll second the motion. Now we're actually under discussion. Folks, you're likely sitting home a little confused about this.
You're assuming people are still watching.
Yeah, it could be. But
9:35.
it's early. The way the contract language is on our town managers,
Just make sure I can carry.
he's only allowed to
5.
carry over 5 vacation
September
days,
5,
which I think
September
we need to seriously look at for our contract
said
renewals.
12.
But,
Yeah.
and this is a situation where he's wanting to
Is that
expand or extend that, so, and it's not precedent setting, but I think it opens the window that 5 days in most circumstances is,
So you're saying
I don't think
September
is
31st,
adequate
not
amount
August
No,
31st.
September 1st.
turnover, but that's open for another discussion.
So a question for you. Under your contract,
Mhm.
you could carry over 5 days to January if you wanted to, because it says 5 days can be carried over. No, so that you could have, literally, you could take 45 days off beginning January 2017, in theory, according to your contract.
Right, which is why I would suggest some
So,
kind of time-limited
so
thing.
in fact, so Marie's saying carry over 12 days to be all used by September 1st is more restrictive to some degree to those 5 days. I mean, what you're really only asking for is an additional 7 days to be carried over.
An additional 7 days to be carried over, correct.
So instead of 12, I should say an additional 7.
An
An additional 7 days, and then you can restrict when they should be,
By
need to be
7, yeah.
used up by.
Yeah, the additional 7 days would be restricted to September 1st. Even though I'm going to use more than that by September 1st.
It's the additional
right,
7
That
days.
you're time restricting.
So I withdraw my previous motion, and I move that the town manager be allowed to carry over 7 additional days to be used by September 1st
Of 2016.
of 2016.
I'll second the motion. Okay, any discussion on this? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? All opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see, we're going to go into executive session.
Now my select board comment. So at the very end, just
Okay.
wanted to, this will be your last time chairing the meeting, and I wanted to thank you for a year.
Mhm.
You know, it's been a lot of work you put into it, and thank you very much for your year of service as chair.
How about 2 years?
2 years, yes.
Yeah,
Well, I
2
was
years.
thinking of this year. I hope we
years.
thanked you last year.
Yeah, yeah, and that's right, folks. I will not be here for the next meeting, so they will be doing, I would imagine, a reorganization at our next meeting. And then I'll be back after that. I just can't take the pain of being thrown out of the chair. No. If we'd known that. Can't take the pain.
Edie
so.
and I have already been working on a plan to keep you just as occupied.
Yeah.
Keep you out of the house.
Yeah, anybody that doesn't think the chair keeps busy, silly.
Yeah, I would reiterate Marie's comments, and I think as the person involved in this operation that he's probably spent the most time with over the last 2 years, I do want to commend Richard for the time he's put in, and we certainly have had our, goes around the maypole on certain issues, but the one thing that was never lacking and has never lacked is his commitment and his desire to do right by the community. So it has been, I think, a good 2 years. I've certainly learned a lot from working with you as chair, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that.
Good. We both served well.
Yeah.
And we're better for it today.
So, and I'll also echo those words of praise, because I know you've worked incredibly hard. Your preparation for the meetings is very apparent. I know you do a lot of work outside the meetings. I think it's a very significant part-time job,
Yeah.
for which the pay is not commensurate. In fact, you would never do it for the pay. So
You would never do it for the pay.
so
If you did, you need your head examined. So, well, thank you, Alex. Thank the board members. It's been an exciting 2 years. We've got a lot of stuff moving. There's a lot of stuff going on. I think I think the town's taken a direction change, and I don't think that's because of the chair. I just think circumstances have come to the attention of the board, and the board is responding to what those new needs are. And I think the efforts likely go on for 3 to 5 more years. But I think there has been a pivotal change in how the board is addressing business, and that's good. That's good to see. And plus the fact we got a town manager now settled in 3 years on his position too, and that's helped. There's a level of understanding. Okay, folks, we're going to go into executive session, so I have a motion.
Not to return to open.
Not to return to open. Could I have a motion for that?
I'll move we go into executive session, not to return into open session for the purposes of contract negotiation.
Roll call, Debbie?
Second.
Alex?
yeah, aye.
Tom?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, see you in 2 weeks. At that time, you'll see a new board sitting before you. Mr. Gold will be back, and we'll have one new board member. And once again, as we close down, I'd like to thank Mr. Grant for his service to the board. He put in three years. Folks, we have these nominations every year. You too can be a select board member. Thank you, and have a nice evening.